Go ahead and call tonight's study session for Sumner County School Board to order. Before we do, we'll stand for a moment of silence, followed by a pledge to our flag. Feel free to join us if you'd like. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Where you want to start with?
All right, I call to order tonight's budget workshop, May 12, 2026. As I told the team, we've only got 2 items on the agenda, so it should be pretty quick tonight.
That sounds great.
That sound great, all right. No, we've got 2 items focused on budget. The first one is road construction, student support, pre-K updates. The second one is presentation discussion of 26-27 budget. So we're waiting for the director. As soon as he walks in, we will get started. In the interim, Wade, you got any funny stories you want to share with us?
He's wearing a goof troop, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Goofy movie. Oh, man, I'm trying to think.
Well, let's say this. Just so you know, Chairman, I will be late to the meeting next week. My daughter's preschool graduation is at 6:30 next
Gotcha.
Tuesday. So, like I said before, we'll make sure that's a priority. I'll be there for that, and then I'll come straight here. But I just want that on record. Like,
I got you.
We'll be late to that.
Gotcha. Perfect. Director's here. Thanks for filling time for us. Appreciate it. Perfect timing. That's the way to work. So, all right, Dr. Langford, we are ready to go.
All right, thank y'all. We are literally working to the last second on everything, so lots of exciting stuff to work through, and as always, you know, budget is both exceptional and challenging, and so we'll just go ahead and jump in and get started. So one of the things, you know, as we talked about last month, trying to work through what's best for students, keeping that in the forefront of everything. And then also looking at what's going on. You know, we know that we have a growing community. We've done a good job all the way back to 2015 when we did the first run of bond money, where we added on to schools, renovated schools, updated schools, and that really built, completed Burris Elementary, added additions at Gallatin and Hendersonville, renovated Beach High School, White House High School, almost every elementary school in the county, across the county in some way or capacity, and that really served us well for growth. But, you know, we've continued to grow, and so we've got to look at a couple things and start to have a serious conversation about how we do that to move forward. So, first off, we need a huge shout out to Mr. Johnson. He's done an outstanding job of pulling everything together, managing 4 or 5 different proprietary systems that don't always like to communicate with each other, between transportation, Google Maps, and everything else. And our IT department's also been very helpful, along with every other department up here, from Ms. Daniel with special education to Ms. Brown and her team with finance, to try to pull everything together and think through this. So I want to just go ahead and start the conversation, and then have plenty of time for any questions you would have. There we go. Okay. Bethpage Elementary rezone. This one is pretty quick and easy. It does not affect, it's not easy, but it's just, it doesn't affect a tremendous number of families, and it's something that's kind of always been hanging out there. I know, talking to former principal talking to Dr. Hallman, it's something that he'd wondered the whole time he was at Schaefer why this hadn't happened a long time ago. So what we're talking about is, beginning with the 26-27 school year, all Bethpage Elementary students will attend Westmoreland Middle School and Westmoreland High School. All former Bethpage students currently enrolled at Schaefer Middle School and Gallatin High School may remain if they provide transportation. Rising 6th grade students may attend Schaefer, and rising freshmen may attend Gallatin if parents provide transportation. We are basically running a bus to the southern part of Bethpage, then all the way back into Gallatin for a handful, Jeremy, was about 11 kids, 10 or 11 kids. So, we're constricted, if you see this, allows Bethpage students to remain with their peers for middle and high schools. Out of 44 rising sixth graders last year, 9 were zoned for Schaefer, and 4 of those students requested to attend Westmoreland Middle out of zone. This year, 11 of 31 rising sixth graders are zoned to Schaefer. And it consolidates bus routes in the Bethpage area and reduces the number of bus routes for Gallatin. We have, one of the problems we have in Gallatin is that's the cluster where we have the longest bus wait time, so it helps lift a little bit of the burden off Gallatin. And I suspect that more kids would probably go to Westmoreland if transportation were an option instead of to Schaefer and Gallatin. But, as the slides say, any kid that wants to continue to go to Gallatin, because there are some kids that live in the southern part of Bethpage, some families live in the southern part of Bethpage, that work in Gallatin and they'd like their kids to stay in Gallatin, that's fine. We can do that through our regular out of zone. I would approve all those out of zones. That wouldn't be a problem. So do you have any questions about Bethpage?
What about, if somebody asks, what about siblings? Like say if they have a sibling already or coming up, would you allow the siblings also to go to Schaefer? If they already had a kid going to Schaefer?
Yeah, as long as they're providing transportation, it's not a problem at all. Yeah.
Even if the school was full, just say Schaefer's?
Yeah, I think they would if they've got a kid at Bethpage that's in 5th grade going into 6th grade, we'd let them go ahead on. Yeah, that's not a problem. It would just be the transportation question.
You mentioned the numbers about the elementary schools. Do you know how many, how many Schaefer middle school 8th graders might be rezoned to
Westmoreland High School? Do you have that number, Jeremy?
The number that I have is who's on the bus, which is 10 total. So we've got
Okay.
3. So there are 10 total that ride that bus route. 7 of them go to Gallatin High School, and 3 of them are at Schaefer.
So 13 that would be
13.
high school,
Yeah, high school, middle school.
assuming that they're not seniors.
Yes.
Gotcha. And just for clarity, because I know somebody will ask this in regards to, I know the TSSAA has the new transfer rule that, depending on how that's rolled out. But when a student is rezoned, that doesn't impact that because now they're naturally
Yeah.
transitioned
So-
to another school.
Yeah, so we would have on the first part of the TSSAA thing, not to go too far, that we'll have to have a separate meeting. It's going to take us a while to untangle all the one transfer. Right now, we are a closed county, which means that we don't have to change anything about what we're doing in terms of eligibility. We're going to think long and hard, multiple meetings about how to handle one transfer. Because the moment that we start going down the one transfer route, it's gonna be like what you see in college sports. So because we're closed, we don't take out of counties right now. We've got a little bit of control over what happens internally. We have to really think through, because to me, the last thing that we want is to create a system where we're making our high schools adversarial with each other. In terms of transferring back and forth. Florida has a very loose transfer policy right now. If you come through 2-a-days and you're not the starting quarterback, you can transfer anywhere else and be eligible immediately. You can play football at one school, play basketball at another, and I don't think that's best for kids. It's definitely not best for our communities. So that would be something we'll have to tease out later. But Mr. Daniels, to your point, anytime a kid is moved because of a rezone, if they provide transportation and stay at Gallatin, they're eligible because you can live on the moon with the TSSAA as long wherever you started as a freshman. If your county allows you to stay, you can live anywhere as long as you started your eligibility there. But if you move to a different school and it was because of a district rezone, then you're automatically immediately eligible.
Thank you. Mr. King.
Yeah, so what is the current capacity of Schaefer Middle School? I'm trying to remember
Yeah, I'll if you want to, I'll look it up real quick, Mr. King. I'll
Okay,
find that
I just don't
document.
remember it being at capacity. I'm just curious. But the reasoning behind this is just to consolidate bus routes, just to, because there's so few students going from Bethpage to Schaefer, it would be better for our bus system. Is that the reasoning behind this?
I think that's more of a secondary thing. I think the thing is you're doing rezoning and cleaning up. We've looked at this for a number of years. If you're doing a rezone anywhere, it's just time to look at everything. And there's always some little nuances. I think this is one because what we were seeing is a significant number of the kids that were going, the overwhelming majority of kids are going from Bethpage to Westmoreland. So you're basically taking a very small number of Bethpage Elementary and sending them to Gallatin. And a lot of times, a lot of those kids would request to go out of zone to Westmoreland, and we would always approve it. So to me, it's a twofold thing. It's like, one, we're breaking apart kids that we don't necessarily have to. Most of them want to stay with their peers, so we're providing transportation for them to stay with their peers. And then secondarily, it doesn't make sense, in terms of fiscal stewardship to run a bus every day for 10 or 11 kids.
Okay. I mean, you can tell me about that.
Yeah, I'm trying to find it right now, and I'll find it for you. But it wasn't really a school capacity decision.
Ms. Stewart?
So is this, and I had a call today, is something that would be phased out eventually, where the ones that are in Bethpage will go to Westmoreland no matter what because of where they are now? You're going to let them finish out, or the parents may let them finish out because of friends. And
Yeah, we would let everybody go. Like, we would just basically say, if you finish 5th grade at Bethpage Elementary, you're going to go to Westmoreland Middle. We'll provide transportation just like everywhere else. But in the interim, if you had started at Schaefer, or you got if you got siblings at Schaefer, or even if you've got like a parent that works in Gallatin that would prefer, we would let you stay at Schaefer in Gallatin.
well, that was the other question they had, and they were comparing to like being grandfathered in or
Yeah.
all that. But
And part of it is, I think part of the confusion, and probably why y'all get some questions, is we used to run a lottery to Westmoreland Middle and Westmoreland High School, and we'd go through all this application process and everything like that, and we would take all the kids every year that applied to go. So it doesn't seem to make any sense to me to make parents go through the steps of applying for a lottery when we approve it every time, when we can just redo it. And then we make it possible, because I would suspect that a high percentage of those kids would have preferred to go to Westmoreland, but didn't because of transportation. So.
Mr. Lacy?
Yeah, I just want to ask some more quick questions. So say you have a ninth grader that's fixing to move to Gallatin High School. This wouldn't affect them in any way, shape, form. It's just students that are at Bethpage currently.
They have to provide transportation. As long as they provide transportation. We wouldn't run a bus for them anymore to Gallatin.
So
We would run one to
the high
Westmoreland.
school students too, I guess, if they're riding the bus too. Okay.
If they were riding a bus, depending on a bus for transportation, they'd have to go to Westmoreland.
Okay.
But if they provided their own transportation, they could go to Gallatin, or stay at Gallatin, yeah.
Any other questions?
Mr. King, the capacity at Schaefer is 880.
Okay,
It's in the 600s right now.
okay.
Okay.
Can I have one more question?
Yes.
Do we have a map that we can share just to show families?
We didn't do a map for it because it's such a small, it's like a couple streets. Go ahead, Mr. Johnson.
We can get transportation to make one by the next board meeting.
Yeah, we can get that done.
Thank you.
Mhm. All right, Burris Elementary School and Knox Doss rezone. Okay, so this is something where part of this is being good citizens in the city of Hendersonville and also addressing long-term growth. So I'll run through this first part, and I'm sure there will be some questions here. Bridge road construction in Hendersonville, alleviating school drop-off and pickup traffic, and then student enrollment growth at William Burris and Knox Doss, and then supporting student needs across the county. So let me run through each slide a little bit individually. All right, so the Stop 30 Drakes Creek Road Improvement Plan has been on the docket for Hendersonville for about 20 years. It's very much needed if you've ever driven through that intersection. The only problem, the reason why it hasn't been done in 20 years is because it's expensive and it's going to be very inconvenient for a while. I really commend the city of Hendersonville. I talked to an alderman, I talked to Mayor Clary. I said, I really commend them for doing this because it's long overdue. But there's going to be, and I want to be real careful with our messaging so it doesn't look like we're blaming the city of Hendersonville for this. It's we want to help because you are talking about there is no good way to replace that bridge without it being inconvenient in some capacity in the short run while it's being repaired in that road. There's a lot of work that has to be done there. And I talked to Mayor Clary last night, and they're going to do everything in their power to minimize the impact on people. but there's just, it's like when you do a renovation of a school or do construction at home, it's going to always be inconvenient and, and kind of a hassle. So I think the question for us is, as good neighbors, what can we do to help? Because they're going to elevate the bridge and intersection. They're going to add, and this is all straight off the Hendersonville website, add new traffic signalization with dedicated turn pockets, widen the roadway in the project area. It'll provide much needed long-term support or help for Hendersonville, but for 12 to 18 months, it's going to be interesting through that intersection. So that's one piece. Another part is if you've ever been through the William Burris Elementary School drop off or pickup, it is something else. It jams that whole area, and that's with going. We flipped 2 years ago. We flipped the pickup line, drop off line, to go behind the building instead of front, and it's kind of already filled back up. So this is something, if you put the road traffic and the road construction project with this drop-off pickup, it's going to be tough. And then student enrollment. We zoned Burris Elementary when Durham Farms was about 30% complete. Mayor Clary told me last night that they have started construction on the last house in Durham Farms, but there's other subdivisions around it that are growing. And so, it was zoned that way over 10 years ago when Durham Farms was just kind of in its infancy. And then supporting needs across Sumner County, just like last year when we consolidated pre-K in Gallatin, we got some opportunities to do some of that here to lift burdens. Station Camp Elementary has a combination of behavior, CDC, pre-K. We have a number of other Hendersonville schools that are in the same boat. If we can consolidate some of those pre-Ks, it also helps us. So here's enrollment at a glance. Currently, these were August enrollment numbers. Beach Elementary has 348 kids. Burris Elementary has 807. If you look at a 10-year run, Beach Elementary is down 95 since 2015-16. Burris is up 331. And a significant number of those kids have come in the last 4 years. So part of that is the build out of Durham, but part of that's growth in that whole area. And so what we are proposing to do is to move about 200 kids from Beach Elementary to Burris Elementary. So Beach would go to 548, Burris would go to about 607. And remember, both schools feed Beach High School. So you're not changing their high school, you're changing their feeder school. So the kids would go from Beach Elementary to T.W. Hunter to Beach High School. Burris would go Burris, Knox Doss, Beach High School. So some of the staffing changes is it would be one assistant principal would move from Burris Elementary to Beach Elementary. Okay, basically go with the kids. And then 9 teaching positions. There's no position cuts, but what we will have is there were 3 unfilled teaching positions currently at Burris. So this would drop that number. We'll just move those 3 to Beach Elementary. Ms. Upstreet will hire those, so then only 6 people will have to move that are currently at Burris to Beach Elementary. And we're going to seek volunteers first. Our hope is, because you always, so many times when you have this, you've got kids that, a parent may teach at Burris, but their kids are at Hunter, and they'd like to be there in the same feeder pattern as their kids. So, guidelines for the rezone for students. All Burris students in the rezone area must go to Beach Elementary. Rising 7th and 8th graders currently enrolled at Knox Doss can remain if they provide transportation. There will be a sibling exception for 6th grade at Knox Doss if they provide their own transportation. So if you have, let's say an 8th grader or 7th grader, or say you have both and you got a rising 6th grader, God bless you as a middle school parent with 3. But we wouldn't want you to have 2 kids at Knox Doss and 1 kid at Hunter and have to try to figure that out. So we would give you an exception for that. Any other, we had rising 6th graders that had already tried out and made the cheer and dance team at Knox Doss. So if they provide transportation, they can roll on into Knox Doss because they've ordered uniforms, paid for camp, everything like that. We've tried to think of every potential exception. There will be a couple of others that we haven't thought about, and we'll just handle that through the regular out-of-zone hardship application process. We will allow, so the middle school, it's significantly less kids. I believe it's like 95 or 100 kids that would move from Knox Doss to Hunter. So we could be a little bit, plus you've got sports and extracurriculars and everything like that. So that we can kind of phase that one in a little bit over time, but we need to move the 200 kids from Burris to Beach Elementary if we can. And then you can see this is the map. Jeremy, do you want to run through the areas?
Which one you got? All right, you got. Okay, so basically, the area of Beach Elementary that we removed when we rezoned Burris a few years ago is what we're sending back. And so if you look up there, if you look up on the map, when you get to the end of Stop 30 Road, we basically go down New Shackle on the borders. And the current Burris zone goes down Goshentown Road, comes out Hunts Lane, and touches Center Point. So the other side of Center Point is zoned for Madison Creek. So this would bring up that side of Center Point, subdivisions like Island Brook, Willowbrook, Alexandria Place, everything on Goshentown Road, the apartments behind Target, they would all go to Beach Elementary now. Now, Stop 30 Road itself would stay in the current Burris zone because, we kind of looked at bus routes and tried to figure out what made sense bus route wise. And the only other part to this is that the Monthaven Park Apartments would actually go to Gene Brown as part of this rezone because from busing standpoint, location standpoint and all that, it makes more sense to send them to Brown than all the way down Center Point to Beach. So, but yeah, that's basically it. The only thing to note on New Shackle, pretty much everything on New Shackle up to Stop 30 coming from Beach would now be in the Beach Elementary zone with the exception to the subdivision that's just past Durham on, I don't know the name of it off the top of my head. It's on Old Shackle Road. Everybody knows where that utility district is, and there's that turn. It's very difficult to get out there, and so we're going to leave that in the Burris zone because it's a lot easier to get a bus front down there, around and back out than to try to turn right or left. What's the name of it? Drake's Point. So Drake's Point will stay in the Burris zone.
Mr. Lancaster?
So, okay. I think that was one part of my question. So anything that's off of, on Drake's Creek Road going to Durham Farm?
Yes.
Is staying.
Staying in. So most importantly, and a question we will get a lot, it's a question that we've gotten a lot at Burris, is there's been a lot of rumors about splitting Durham. Durham will not be split. So Durham will stay entirely in the Burris zone. So nothing on Drake's Creek Road would be part of this rezone, no.
So this is just Center Point east,
Yeah.
Forest Retreat north, basically, Vietnam Vets north.
Yes.
And then up New Shackle and grabbing Island Brook and pretty much anything.
Yeah, Island Brook, and then the subdivision right beside Island Brook is called Willowbrook, I believe.
Okay. I guess I didn't even realize those two different things, but okay.
Yeah, I didn't either until transportation was like, hey, there's two of them.
But the one, the neighborhood across from Target or Glenbrook or Glen Oaks.
Yeah, when you
Glenbrook.
come, it's a great question. That one would stay in the Burris zone
Okay.
because that's the end of that bus route. So you go up Stop 30, go through that neighborhood, that's that bus route. So it would stay in the Burris zone.
So the 200 elementary.
Yes.
Said 95 to 100 middle school. Is it because, I guess that's 3 versus 6th grade, so that does make sense. But I was just wondering if that was because we've seen more growth in these younger.
I think it's a little bit of both. I think that the people that have moved, especially into Durham, came in with younger children, and we've seen the same thing at Liberty Creek Elementary. We used to see it in, what's the subdivision right at the end of the intersection along all the Upper Station, Creekside? For years, we had about 280 elementary kids in Creekside. But it's starting, as home values have gone up, it started to, that population started to age up.
And how many students are in, what is it, Monthaven Green?
Monthaven Green.
That they will now go to,
They will now go to Beach Elementary.
No.
No, Monthaven, you're thinking about Monthaven Park. Monthaven Park Apartments. So there's two things. Monthaven Green is a subdivision that's on Center Point, and that will go to Burris. Monthaven Park Apartments
Beach.
is the apartment common that will go to Beach. Thank you. And Monthaven Park Apartments will go to Gene Brown, and that's about 30 students.
it's that would be the only thing that changes from a high school stand.
Yes.
Yeah, that would change.
That's Gene Brown, Ellis. or-
Yeah, they go to Hawkins and Hendersonville. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, they would go to Hawkins.
Yeah, because it just seems weird to me. It seems weird that they were going to Burris, but it seems stranger that you would come out, drive almost by Gene Brown,
Yeah, 'cause
and then go
it's
all the
only
way up to
from-
Beach.
Right, from where that park is. I know where
Yeah.
it's are. Second part about her, I don't know, maybe it's third question, I'm not keeping track of number of questions, but is the plan for this to be the zone going forward?
Yes.
Past this bridge being out? I mean,
Yeah.
the bridge
Yes.
being out is a reason to go ahead and redo the rezoning that was likely needed. I need the Burris numbers at some point. I know every year we're adding about 50 or 60 kids there. And I've heard parents say, hey, we seem kind of
So, let's see. Yeah, Burris,
tight quarters, you know?
Burris was at, in 2021, Burris was at 583, and then it went 661, 725, 774, 789, 807.
Yeah, they didn't lose. None of that got rezoned with like Liberty Creek or anything. That's just growth.
That's great. That's Durham Farms and others building out over there. They'll definitely backfill.
Yeah.
You know, if we don't do something, we're going to be in 3 or 4 years, we're going
The
to be
reason
at
I asked is
900.
the beginning of the, like, hey, we're having this bridge out for 12 to 18 months. That's going to be a question like, hey, if the
Yeah.
bridge is fixed, are we going back? I'm like, no.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah. Because I think it would be hard. I think one of the things we saw with Liberty Creek when we had to move Carrollton early is it was a hard transition because they made the transition from Station Camp to Beach Elementary for 2 years, and then they made the transition to Liberty Creek, and everybody was fine, but we did, you know, kids had to change schools twice. It's better if we can just do it once.
So, I understand we're kind of treating it kind of like Gallatin High School, or not Gallatin High School, but have a pre-K where we centralize in Gallatin.
Yeah, I ain't got to that yet.
Okay.
Got a slide on that.
I
so.
thought that was on there, but anyway.
It might have been.
It was in the initial program.
Yeah.
I'll ask that question when we get to it.
Yeah.
Mr. Evans?
I mean, obviously, we know we're about to talk about. You just mentioned it. I think from a parent's perspective, I think we could all look at what you're trying to do with the pre-K. I think it's gonna be really hard to explain to a parent that you've, on paper, it looks like you're taking away a student and replacing him with a preschool student. In reality, we're not doing that, but I think some parents are gonna have a hard time rationalizing
Yeah.
that. So my problem with that, or my concern is adding in X amount of pre-K classrooms and students while that area is still growing. I mean, we live in Norman Farms. I can tell you just that what's being built around there. My concern is there's all these other neighborhoods that are about to be built around there.
Yeah.
Are we just gonna? What's gonna happen to that pre-K in 4 or 5 years when those houses are
Yeah,
built?
ideally, we'd like to have a pre-K space like what we had with Gallatin Early Learning
So
Center.
a separate building. Okay.
That'd be ideal. I think the
I just think it
the
needs to be-
zoning part that Mr. Lancaster was asking about
Yeah.
should be permanent.
Yes.
The pre-K thing is a stopgap until we can find a longer.
Well, you know what? There is a
solution.
building that is vacant in Durham Farms that used to be a pre-K or whatever it was, a preschool. So
Yeah, we have actually.
maybe we should look into that.
We don't want to mention that here because it drops the
Sorry,
price up. But
sorry.
yeah.
I think that's a terrible idea.
Yeah, it's a terrible idea,
It's
Mr.
not a vacant building. Sorry.
Yeah.
Right, thanks.
Yeah. Okay, Mr. Johnson, was there anything you wanted to highlight on the blue map? Is that?
Not unless anybody's got any questions for me. You know, Durham and everything down Drake's Creek would stay in the Burris zone.
Okay. All right. So I'll come back to pre-K, explain that in just a second, but I wanted to share with you the process that we're going through. And this comes from learning when we've had a couple of other rezones and new schools and things like that. We want to try to manage this where we don't create fruit basket turnover in our schools. So look at this, 6 teachers from Burris will shift to Beach Elementary. Dr. Miller will work with the principals to determine the process for teacher selection from the transfer interest. So we will open the internal transfer interest form tomorrow. Now, the rezone won't be official until you approve it. If you vote no, then everybody stays where they are. But if you approve it, what we wanted to do is go ahead and start this part of the process because we don't want to get into the summer where teachers would then have to come and burn days in the summer to pack up or move their room to a different building. This way we can go ahead, if the rezone is approved, we can go ahead and knock this out before the end of the year to provide the most amount of support for our teachers. So That would go from May 13th until May 19th, next Tuesday. And then on the 20th, Dr. Miller will meet with Ms. Lyles and Miss Ussery. And basically, like, we know the grade position, but what we're going to try to do is manage so that you don't lose like an entire 5th grade team, or you don't lose like all your ELA teachers. So it's not gonna quite be like a draft, but there's going to be like, no, you can't take 3 teachers out of 5th grade. You can't take, because what we don't want to do is, Burris went through this when Liberty Creek opened. They lost a lot of teachers, and so we want to manage that so it has the minimal amount of impact on the school, both schools.
Ms. Brennick?
I recognize the need for timing behind this, but so is this enough time for our teachers to be able to make a good decision? Having not been through this before, I would think if I was looking at, I would want more than a week to make a call. And I get why, so there's still classroom space, but do we have any concern over how quickly we're asking our teachers to make that decision?
I mean, you'd always prefer more time. I think that, I can tell you that we have, when positions open all the time in the summer, with not involving a rezone, we typically, most principals now send out a letter of intent in February to try to see if people are leaving so they can go ahead and hire early. But you will still have some, because the position will open at Hendersonville High School, and you've taught at White House for years, but you live in Hendersonville, you've always wanted that. So people make decisions at different rates. I think we will know next Wednesday if we have 2 applicants for 6 positions, then probably not. But if we have 15, then there was plenty of time. So some of that will just be waiting. And for some teachers, it's not even a matter of, do I want to be at Beach or I want to be at Burris? It's, I'm teaching 2nd grade at Burris. I've always wanted to teach 5th grade. Or, this could go either way. I've always wanted to work with Miss Ussery. I've always wanted to work with Miss Lyles. Or, I went to Beach High School. I'd like to be a Buccaneer again. There's a lot of different. And start time. Beach Elementary starts at 7:15. Burris, it starts at 8:30. There's some that would prefer that. Either way would prefer that start time. Yeah. Okay. I guess I did freeze out. Let me go back, because I thought I had a whole slide on pre-K, but I don't. I skipped that one. So let me, what we were talking about doing is, because we're shifting a significant 200 students out. That's a significant number of classrooms. Part of this is a short-term solution, because we've got problems, particularly at Station Camp Elementary, because Station Camp Elementary is catching the same growth pattern that Burris is. But we're over 1,000 at Station Camp Elementary, and they've got CDC, behavior, and pre-K. So how do we lift some of that burden off Station Camp, at the same time lifting some of the burden off the other Hendersonville schools where it's the same thing? What we saw with Gallatin Early Learning Center is when we centralize pre-K, one thing it does is, one of the things that Dr. Miller's emphasized and the academics team when they presented is collaborative planning is a big initiative of ours. Teachers need support, want support, and they get that primarily from collaborating with each other. If you're 1 or 2 pre-K teachers in a building, it's one of the things, like if you talk to Brian Brewer at Oakmont, it's easy to talk about collaborative planning, but if you have 1 3rd grade teacher, who do they collaborate with? Mm-hmm. And so pre-K teachers sometimes are in the school, but they're not of the school, because it's different in terms of what they teach and how they teach, and the hours of the day and student population and things like that. So if you have them together at a little bit larger scale, it lets us provide a whole lot more special education resources, literacy resources, things like that, because they're in one place. That makes it a lot better experience for the pre-K kids. If you had the opportunity, like I didn't get to go up to it last Friday, but we had a pre-K field day back here. And from what I hear, Katie, it was one of the most amazing things. Pre-K Halloween was pretty cool too. So, it makes a better experience for our pre-K students as we welcome them in. To Mr. Evans' point, it is ideally a short-term solution. But one advantage that we do gain too is we can run pre-K at a different set of hours, so it's not conflicting with the main drop-off time. At Burris, so it wouldn't be an 8:30 start for pre-K. It'd probably be the same time as Knox-Dawes. You don't have, interestingly, parents are generally happier to put a middle school kid on a bus as opposed to a car. It's a special feature of middle school kids. But no, all kidding aside, we can work around the traffic part by starting pre-K earlier because they have an abbreviated day.
Ms. Barnes?
Yes, kind of back to the teachers. If you do not have enough teachers that actually volunteer to transfer, what's the process?
Last in, first out.
Okay, okay. And will classified staff be impacted at all?
So Ms. Daniel is working on that right now. There will probably be enough openings between, like Beach Elementary would get additional staffing because of the number of kids coming, with Burris having the pre-K moving in. So classified staff that wanted to stay at either building should be able to stay at either building.
Okay.
But if they wanted to move, there would also be opportunities there. It will not, we are leaving the staffing at Burris in the office and counselors and things like that the same.
Okay.
So there won't be, they're not losing like half a counseling position or anything like that.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Hollis?
So I got on the consolidating the pre-K. So if I understand it right, we're shifting students out of Burris over to Beach Elementary.
Right.
And that's gonna open up 200 some odd student. So, and then we're gonna take, because Station Camp Elementary is over or near capacity, we're gonna take that and shift it over to Burris in the interim. I guess just trying to understand, because some of the calls that I got were, some of the parents would say, hey, we tested in, you know, I work here, we tested for that location, students got in, and now we're gonna go somewhere else.
Yeah.
And I think, I don't know, again, I know anytime you do something like this, it's gonna be inconvenience to some people.
Yeah.
It's not a perfect,
Yeah.
you can't do it, but generally, I'm trying to just think from a long-term solution. What's the next step? What we talk, what are your thoughts? Is it 2 years, 6 years at Burris and then move them somewhere else after that?
If we can afford a standalone, because I mean, ideally you have something like Gallatin or Learning Center, but we own that. You know, if we had something like that in the Hendersonville area, we would absolutely use that. We were kind of getting that, we've kind of gotten that way in a couple places already, like H.B. Williams has a number of pre-K, Beach Elementary's had a number of pre-Ks over the years. But, you know, if you can put, say, 8 classrooms together, it gives you kind of an economy of scale to make that pre-K experience better for the kids. You're running at a different time. You can put an administrator there so that, because what you run into is like, so if you think Station Camp Elementary with multiple CDCs, behavior class, and then multiple pre-Ks. So those pre-Ks, you're talking 30, 40 IEPs. Then you're talking about multiple IEP meetings for your behavior class students. This is all a good thing, right? Because we want to serve our student population. So I'm not talking about, we want the services to be top notch, which our principals do a good job. But when you have 2 or 3 very different programs like CDC, behavior, and pre-K, you're talking about a significant amount of time away from the regular K-6 needs of your students. So if you can centralize some of those where you can put an administrator there with them, then you're lifting that burden of the IEPs off the principal. So like, you know, for instance, at Burris, Ms. Lyles will have someone that will take care of all that pre-K work for her. So then you're shifting that burden, you know, where she can then, you know, be more focused on the kids that are there at Burris at K-5.
So the staff for, let's say it's Station Camp Elementary, the staff for the pre-K, speech therapy, what, I don't know all the positions, would they all shift then over to Burris, or would we?
It would be kind of a hot, based on need. So like the thing with special education, Julie, jump in here if I miss anything. That already happens a lot with special education anyway, because it's based on the needs of the kids. So like if you have a deaf student, when they go from 5th to 6th grade, there's personnel that shifts because we don't have a tremendous number of deaf students. But so we move speech language pathology, stuff like that. Like they tend to have more of a caseload, is that right, Julie, than a specific location? So their caseload.
They travel around already anyways.
Yeah. Now some of our higher like Station Camp would probably have somebody almost full time there. just because of the number. But you know, like we deal with this quite often, you know, just because of the movement of the students. Yeah, but I would like it to be a short term. If we could find a space and we could afford to lease or purchase it, I would. You know, I think like not to go too far into it, because only plenty of time for budget, but childcare. If you happen to be at the Grace Place Ministry presentation, childcare is going to become such an overwhelming need in the next few years that I think one of the things that we should look at is how do we build a preschool support that's pre-K plus preschool, whatever that might be, because it's a massive need. It would be a huge incentive for us for recruiting and retaining teachers and things like that. That's a little bit down the road, but I mean, I think there would be, if we do that, then that place that Mr. Evans didn't mention would become more of a possibility, and it would be a great thing for us to be able to do.
Mr. Evans?
Yeah. Okay. I think just for clarity, because I feel like obviously this will be online, and even the way he kind of, or Mr. Hollis mentioned it, you mentioned Station Camp Elementary.
Mm-hmm.
We are talking about taking these preschool programs out of these other schools and centralizing it into one. What other schools are we talking about?
It's a majority. We're still we're trying to figure out, because we're not going to be able to move them all.
Okay.
When we met with Ms. Lyles yesterday, one of the things that came up is if we use 8 classrooms instead of 10,
Yep.
then it makes it a whole lot easier on Burris to manage. Like, so
Some growth.
every grade has a bathroom and everything like that. So that's an easy decision for us to make. So I'll be able to tell you probably in a couple of days into the week exactly how, but it's most of the Hendersonville pre-Ks.
Okay. All right.
Mr. Lancaster?
Yeah, when we talk pre-K, so I definitely think, you know, you got classroom space, but you're also, each classroom's what, 3 or 4 pre-K teachers usually? I know it's more than one because you got so many per.
Teacher or assistants as well?
One teacher, a couple of
One teacher,
assistants.
2 assistants typically.
One teacher, 2 assistants.
Yeah, the reason I'm asking is like, hey, every time I've gone to Burris, you can't park, can't find a spot.
Yeah.
So where are these people gonna park? And have we thought about that? Because if you add I'm saying, hey, we're losing 9 teachers from Burris, but we're gonna backfill possibly 20 to 30.
Yeah. We can get a count on the number.
Yeah, I just know there's not that many extra spaces
Yeah.
anytime I've gone over there, and that's
Yeah.
something we need to
That's
at least
something
think about.
Yep, we can definitely think about that.
So, thank you.
Mhm.
Oh, and the other thing, I know I'm gonna get, something besides cheer and dance. Obviously, those are the big ones because Lord knows you don't wanna tick off a cheer mom or a dance mom. I'm married to one, I know that. But,
That was the opinion of Mr. Lancaster, about for the record.
that could be set in stone. It could be the 11th commandment. You don't tick off a cheer or dance mom, but.
More Mr. Lancaster opinion.
Anyway, what other, if there's another sport that comes up, say, hey, my kid's already tried out and made
Yeah.
what? Do I just say, hey, I'm going to reach out to Dr. Langford, tell y'all complain to me, and I'll see if I can.
We're going to actually, Dr. Flood is going to send out a communication to his parents. We'll have like a Google form or something
Okay.
for them to request. Since they can already stay, it's pretty easy there. If they're providing their own transportation, they can stay. So I think Dr. Flood will be best able to decide, you know, I mean, if he has a question, he can certainly come to me, and you could certainly, if somebody contacts you, the easiest thing is say, talk to Dr. Flood or talk to me.
Okay. And then when will this be communicated to? Like, obviously it's online now, but
Yeah.
you're going to have people that are like, hey, nobody told me.
Mhm.
And they'll be showing up at Burris registration night and say, nobody told me. But are we
Yeah.
sending something?
It's going to go out tonight. We've got a letter, a website.
It went out at 6:30. We wanted to make sure we had accurate information to parents.
So if I turn
because
my
we
phone
figured
on,
as he
it's
came
probably-
on board, we figured
Get
without
paid
the board meeting, we needed to get something out to parents. And then to clarify on sports teams, the last time I talked to Dr. Flood, the only 2 teams that had tried out at Doss were the dance and cheer teams. But we did talk to him about if something else had tried out, that he would reach out to them and get them into.
Thanks.
Yeah, and I just to wrap up, I think, you know, we will continue. I appreciate the conversation. If you think of anything else we need to address, if you can let me or Mr. Johnson know. You know, it's just when we look at these numbers, we've needed to do this down like, Henderson, they've needed this bridge done for a long time in Hendersonville. We've needed to do this rezone for a while. The only reason that we haven't done it is when Liberty Creek opened, Burris took a substantial hit in terms of teacher population and in terms of transitioning to a new principal. And then after a year, they had another principal transition. And then Mr. Elrod was getting ready to retire after that. So generally, we try not to do a rezone when you've got a first-year principal or substantial. Because just like any time, like in the environment, if a piece of property takes a substantial hit, you got to give it time to grow back up in the culture to rebuild, which Burris and Beach Elementary. I think the good thing, and I would encourage anybody that says this is both schools are reward schools, both schools are STEM schools, both schools are outstanding, both schools have vibrant PTOs. Mr. Lancaster has a QR code you can scan if you'd like to become a Buccaneer PTO member. Mr. Evans probably get you connected with that Burris PTO, but anyway, both schools are outstanding, and when this bridge construction starts, everybody will be thankful that we have yanked the Band-Aid off and gone ahead and done this, because it's going to be best for both schools in the long run. Or that would be my recommendation. Okay. All right, are we ready to switch to budget?
And while he is doing that, I shared
Mr.
with
King.
everyone the
So
communication
we're
we sent.
gonna be voting on these zoning changes at our meeting next week, is that right?
Yep.
Okay.
All right, budget. I'm going to go through the first part. I think last year we were up against the 11th hour getting everything done. So I'm going to try just so we have plenty of time for discussion. I'm going to go ahead and get started while we're passing out the actual budget books. And if you notice, for the 14th consecutive year, Ms. Brown does match the color of the budget book. Yeah, that's a good question. All right, so just to run quickly, our One Sumner work that we've done a lot on this year talks about our core values. I'll share this slide with you and it'll be a part of the presentation. But this really is what we're trying to ground our hiring decisions, everything else around. I actually, it's not the purpose of tonight, but we need to do my evaluation at some point in the next month or two. I've actually got Dr. Miller and Dr. McClard have been working on, with the academics team, have been working on something for our leadership conference for leaders to self-assess themselves on core values, strategic anchors, things like that. And I actually am probably going to present that to y'all along with the strategic goals that we've been working on to build my evaluation around it, because I think sometimes you need to revisit evaluation tools to make sure they match what's going on now. I know there's been talk about what do we put in that evaluation. That's probably more of a great June conversation. But anyway, I just want to give you a little heads up, because it will feature this, because Patrick Lencioni will tell you that if you hire, you can teach skill and you can teach concepts. What you can't do is teach core values that align with your mission and vision. And if you hire in these areas or don't hire according to these areas, you're generally almost always right. And similarly, in our playbook through Patrick Lencioni is, why do we exist and what do we do? We exist to develop better people for a better world. That includes our kids, our staff, everybody that's connected to Sumner County Schools. And we prepare all students for their first and future career. So before we get started, a lot of times when we get into budget discussions, the thing that I hate about budget discussions, the thing I hate about, I don't hate school systems, but I hate this aspect of it, is different groups get pitted against each other in competition for resources. We don't do that as much in Sumner County. It's pretty brutal in a lot of districts, but I want you to think like this is a picture on the left from Special Olympics a couple weeks ago. Another picture is a boy that was an early graduate at Westmoreland High School, got a job the other day at at our draft day at the Innovation Center. But I want you to think about for a minute as we get started, what happens when a kid goes to school every day? So yes, a kid goes to school, they see their principal in the front, they wave at them, they walk into the school. I've seen Dr. Mason do this a million times at Lakeside Park, Station Camp Elementary, White House Intermediate. Know every kid by name. Dr. Mann knows not only all the kids, he knows all the parents, the grandparents, if you're at Whitten. Our principals do this every day. Our teachers greet kids warmly as they come in the door. Many have elaborate greeting rituals, fist bumps, hugs, handshakes, whatever it might be. They welcome them into the school. And then they get a great day of instruction. But along with that requires a lot of times a bus ride, a breakfast, a lunch, a trip to see the counselor, a trip to see the nurse, hopefully not, but sometimes a crisis social worker. A significant amount, all those people have to be background checked and hired formally and properly by HR. We have to make sure that they get paid and supported. We have to pay the bills for the food, for the technology, for the curriculum, everything else that they use. So when you see a picture of kids being successful at school, there are the direct parts, the teachers and principals that directly connect with our kids each day, teaching assistants, lunch ladies, things like that. And then there are those that stand alongside and behind them, supporting to make sure that that happens. And so I think it's important to remember that you can't break these pieces apart. We can debate, what needs to happen and how do we pay them and what else do we do, but it's important to remember that every cog, it's one of the things we've really tried to work on, because our payroll team works round the clock, month after month after month. It's been really neat to see them work on some of our cross-departmental teams that you heard about at our retreat, because they get to see directly some of the work that they do, and it's not just payroll, but across the district office. All right, so budget goals for this budget year. All right, so in our conversations at the board, in our conversation with principals out in the community, there's been, and this is a nationwide thing too, is what do we do for behavior and student support? We have students that have faced significant trauma. We have an increasing number of kids that have special needs. We have a significant number of kids that have had all kinds of different experiences as they moved here from all over the world. We've got 39 families that relocated here from Afghanistan, in a 24 to 36 hour period when they were fleeing Afghanistan. You can imagine that their needs are very different than, someone that grew up in 12 Stones. So how do we meet the needs of our students and families? And then CTE and innovation continues to be a big push for us. Continued support for our teachers and staff, continued investment in technology, and continued investment in small class sizes and school level support. So I wanted to go real quickly and give you an update on our previous big budget initiatives that we've done over the last 3 years. The first being teacher and staff compensation. If you remember, January 2024, Mr. Ott did a presentation based on one of our first cross-departmental teams that worked for months at studying and analyzing everything about our pay, and finding out that we had some real serious concerns. Here are some celebrations from what's happened when we made the significant investment that we did in compensation in 2024 for 25-26, or excuse me, for 24-25. Our certified turnover rate has dropped from 9.4 to 4.6. That's amazing. Our classified staff, now this number is not for all classified staff. This is for classified staff in that range from 11, the bottom three, the first three levels on our range system, 11 to 13. These are the jobs that we used to have 27.3% turnover rate, and that rate is now 11.2%. That's a 59% drop in 2 budget years. That's pretty remarkable. So we'll let that sit there for a second. Teacher salary scale history. In 2019-2020, a starting teacher in Sumner County started at $36,100. Today, that teacher starts at $50,500. To give you a little different look at it, because it's more than just what you start, one of the things that we do at Sumner County, for a long time, once you hit year 20, you didn't get a raise unless there was just a specific bonus or a specific addition made. Once you hit 20, you tapped out on the scale. We took that then initially to 24 years and then to 30 years. We're out, I believe, now because it just kind of moves with our people. But I don't know what we did with Miss Aiken. I don't know that we got to step 59, but should have been a little bit of an outlier. But we continue to extend that so that people, when we say that people get a step raise, everybody gets a step raise, not just those years 1 through 20 or whatever. So to show the impact of that, if you were a new teacher in 2019-2020, you started at $36,100. If you stayed at the bachelor's level and didn't get a master's or a doctorate, you would be at $54,731 today. If you had taught 20 years in 2019-20, you were at $54,441 on the old pay scale. You would now be at $76,219. That's a substantial improvement in our compensation package. For classified, I didn't do the historical analysis because when we did so much work, Mr. Otten's team did so much work on the classified pay scale when we did the $4 raise that I don't, I'd be happy to share it with you if you want to see what we did before. But so 2 years ago we did $4 plus a step. Last year we did a 2-step raise. So if you remember, there was one slide in Mr. Ott's presentation where it showed that like 56, 57% of our employees were in that little box of ranges 11 to 13. And the average salary then was $14.25. If you were in that box that year, 23-24, the average salaries increased from $14.25 an hour to $19.23 an hour. Another substantial. I mean, if you want to talk over a longer period, in 2011, 2012, most of our people in that range were making $7.25 an hour. Okay. To give a little bit different picture, if you were a new teacher assistant in 23-24, you started at $12 an hour. You'd now be at $16.98 an hour. And you can see that for bookkeeper, $15.11 to $19.84. Maintenance staff, $16.73 to $21.21. And bus driver, $19.26 to $23.18. So substantial increases across the board for our certified and classified staff. Now, fill rate, if you remember, this was a huge deal. In 22-23, we had a position that was advertised on average stayed open 80 days and then took 45 days to fill. Now, a classified position, average time to fill is 27.45 days, certified is 21.16 days. So, about a quarter of the time that it used to take. All right, so this is just to remind you, through January 2024, I showed you the averages, but this gives you a picture of, especially some of the higher turnover jobs, how long they stayed open. Like some of those jobs were open for 589 days, like Knox Dawson, and it was weird because it was all over the county, like a position at Liberty Creek, a position at Knox Dawson, a position at Westmoreland, Nannyberry. This is what we routinely saw in 22-23, and we made the concerted effort because as we looked at the salary study, our biggest thing is you could make $12 or even $14 working for us, or you could go to Chick-fil-A and make $17, $18 an hour. And so we wanted to invest so that we could have the best for our kids. So as of yesterday, we only had 23 elementary positions, full-time positions open in the county. We only had 4 middle school and 6 high school positions open. 21 special education positions, a lot of which we've got a lot of new positions that we're proposing to add, and those are up. And then 65 classified positions. Sometimes we've been in the 250s in open positions right now. We've had more open positions in one middle school, double or triple that at times, than what we have open right now. The coolest part is we had graduation for Teach Sumner last night. We had 25 graduate, 2 first-time cohorts, our second CTE cohort. Next year that number will go to 40. And Ms. Brown and I, we found out today from Dr. Alexander that our cohort for this year is almost full but, you know, you can look at the numbers, so too are our teaching jobs. So really exciting. All right, so that, you remember when we did paid parental leave? We extended that not only just to certified staff, but to classified staff too, included foster care adoption. And you can see that that's been, we've been reimbursed for $2 million, a little bit over $2 million, and non-reimbursed for about $221,000. And so you can see the information on, that's a big impact on families when they can take maternity, paternity leave, or paid parental leave. All right, capital. So our athletic facility project should be done by May 31st. Our Merrill Hyde community, that includes lights on the tennis courts. Just so you know, Gallatin High Track, Merrill Hyde tennis courts, the weather's been kind of dipping. We need 55-degree days to put the surface down so that it doesn't mess up the curing process on it. So usually by May, we got that pretty consistently, but we've had some cooler days. And so anyway, those projects should be done. Okay, I just want to give you kind of an update on where we've been. 24, we spent $15.2 million on capital projects. Then 2025, that's when we invested the bulk in our capital, or in our athletic facilities, $34.3 million, and then $5.5 million this year. So if you look at the breakdown, that's this, what I listed as phase one, that's these projects. That's 55.8% of the $50 million that we spent on capital projects. Okay? And then 44.2 on other capital projects. And those have been all over the county, from the new roof at Westmoreland Middle School to Portland High School's new roof, HVAC at Bethpage, down to Gallatin High School, Little Gym, Station Camp gym floor, HVAC roof, pretty much annex gym at Beach High School, HVAC work at Beach High School. So it's been spread pretty much over the whole county. I can put together, if you'd like to see, I can put together a list by cluster of all these different capital projects. But just wanted to give you kind of a brief overview of that tonight. Huge success. I mean, we've done $50 million in addition to $40 million plus in compensation in a couple of years that have made a significant impact on our staffing and on our facilities. All right, technology. Wanted to give you a little bit of an idea of, and I'm going to go real quickly through this. School technology snapshot. So in 2020, schools were almost completely responsible for teacher devices. So principals use their instruction money and they got a district device fund. And so if you see, schools were mostly Windows-based desktops with a small number of laptops. Average age of a device was about 4 years, so mid to late cycle, oftentimes needing replacement. Student devices, we had a ratio of about 1 device for every 4 students, largely dependent on Chromebooks, Windows desktop labs, and a limited number of Windows laptops. As you can see, the issues and concerns, you don't even hear anybody talk about carts that much anymore. Used to, you'd have to sign up for the cart. You'd have a couple per hallway or a couple per school. You were limited. You lost instructional time waiting for the devices. It was not equitable across schools and students. It was really hard for IT to manage a wide array of devices. And it did have a significant impact on school instructional funds, along with an aging and incomplete infrastructure. Currently, we have 2,300 MacBooks purchased for teachers, 2,500 iPads for teachers that we'll be replenishing this fall. We do provide PC devices where needed. If you're teaching engineering or accounting or something like that, you need a PC and not a Mac. We're continuing to replenish devices for school office staff. This will be the second consecutive summer that every new teacher in Sumner County, their first day of when we get started, their first day they will receive their new MacBook and iPad to start off with, and they'll be fully loaded with everything they need, from their curriculum to access to the printer, everything else, or copier, everything else. And so you can see, there's a lot of talk today about device time. We have intentionally tried to limit the number of devices in elementary, especially K2, to 5 per classroom. And even within that, a conversation, one of the things I jump out of this for just a second, when you look at Course Mojo, the success we've had with it, it's 20 to 25 minutes 3 times a week. So it's not replacing the teacher by taking 90 minutes of instruction time being on a device. It's very targeted, and that's what we're looking at, not kids sitting around on devices for hours. Grades 3 through 5, about 1 device for 4 students, and then grades 6 through 12, 1-to-1 iPads. The state is moving to online testing next year for elementary school. So one of the things that we're going to do, instead of selling back all the high school iPads that we're pulling out this year, we're going to rotate those down. They're still in great shape. They work well. We're going to rotate those down into 4th and 5th grade to give us a little bit of time to figure out how we're going to manage 4th and 5th grade online testing, and that saves us a substantial amount of money this year. Our breakage rate was, out of 22,000 iPads over 3 years, we had less than 400 break. So if you remember, we did not do Apple Care on this next run because it's cheaper to self-insure than it is to take on the cost of the Apple Care. All right, innovation. Tennessee's #1 for K-12 education in the South. This came from SCORE. It's based on the 2024 NAEP assessment. And yet, even with our #1 status, if you look, 15 million young adults are unemployed, underemployed, or working below their education level. 85% of good jobs will require more than a high school diploma by 2031. I would argue most of them do now. And then 78% of Gen Z believe career planning matters before high school graduation, but only 13% feel ready. So only 2 out of 10 students currently in Tennessee complete a post-secondary program on time. And that's a huge problem. If you look at the completion rates across the state, that's a problem. And then durable skills or professional skills, I put this in more for you to look at later if you want to review the slide deck, is durable skills are communication, leadership, collaboration. You know, I talked earlier about core values for us. These are kind of additional core values for students. You need to be able to look somebody in the eye, you need to be able to carry on a conversation, work on a team, and lead. And it's all stuff that we're trying to build out through the Innovation Center, but not just the Innovation Center. Because one of the things we've worked on this year, we're still building this out. We'll have a new high school team, hired a new high school coordinator. We'll have a new high school supervisor hired in the next few weeks. But beginning to see that high school team pair with our CTE innovation team to really get things aligned across the district is going to be very powerful. So one of the things we're looking at is APEX. APEX is a model that we're trying to figure out, because we'd like to also share this around the state and country, is how do we leverage, you know, how do we get kids to think again? How do we get adults to think again? How do we begin to bring students, educators, and community partners together to design a bold new vision for educators? And that's exactly what we're doing, solving real world problems, discovering new technologies, figuring out how AI is integrated, gaining experience and confidence, collaborating. That's how you build those durable skills, not by sitting in a classroom listening to them, but actually doing them and learning about them. So that's coming, starting at the Innovation Center, but we're already doing a lot of this in our high schools. It's tying it all together. We've done a tremendous job over the last decade putting in place all the resources to have top flight CTE, but now tying it together. And so if you look, what APEX will represent is Sumner County High Schools with the Innovation Center, working with community partners, industry, charities, nonprofits, and then post-secondary trades, apprenticeships, TCAT, community college, and universities. First time in my life that I've ever seen everybody really wanting to work together. I spoke with the superintendent of high schools in New York City last week, and a superintendent from Aldine, Texas, down in Houston. The numbers in New York City are staggering. 900,000 students in New York City schools. They're running 200,000 paid internships with their high school students to get them on a career path for a good paying job so that they can live in New York City if they choose to. That's the future of where we're going to be heading, is how do we get kids outside the school to work, to get paid hopefully, but then to also find out what they like. So this year, I just got statistics back from the draft day on Friday. Over 500 high school students, 50 plus companies. 6 students received on-the-spot job offers. More than 70% of those that interviewed got some kind of follow-up step, an application, a tour, or an interview. You know, my wife is the career coach at White House, and she practically wrestled one kid to get him there. He apologized at the end of draft day and told her that he should have acted nicer, but he didn't want to do a resume. He didn't want to wear nice clothes. He really didn't want to do an interview, and he was on fire at the end of it because he got to experience so much different stuff. And we had Wood Grain, Bell Construction, Rogers Group all made direct hires that day. And so this is you'll be the first. This is the first time we've shown this in public. This is something we partnered with Forward Sumner, our economic and community development arm. They helped support us to do this, but this is the video that we put together for the Innovation Center.
If you really want to do something like this with your future, do it. Don't be afraid to take the risk. It's been wonderful.
Welcome to the Carolyn Smith Innovation Center.
I'm Grace. I go to Gallatin High School and I'm a senior. If I was to tell them anything about the Innovation Center, I would tell them it's a great experience. You meet new people, you learn about new things, you can apply all of it to your everyday life.
The Carolyn Smith Innovation Center provides a unique learning environment for students that provides authentic experiences and partnerships. We are currently hosting dual enrollment courses here at the Innovation Center and are actively developing APEX, an exciting learning model that will challenge and empower students for years to come.
My name's Will Bennett. I go to Station Camp High School and I'm a junior. I remember first day, I walked in here and I saw that fireplace and I was like, whoa, and this is a school. It's a great space because we get to meet other students from other schools as well that also have the same interest as us. You just really have to work hard for it, especially if you take the aviation class. It's a great place to start. Raise your expectations from what they are. It's a beautiful space. And then you come in and you sit down and take that first class. It's not like your algebra class with that teacher that you're sitting with in class. Here, they're having a one-on-one conversation with you.
And so I want to pull together, I'll go through these quickly. These are student testimonies of students that are currently at the Innovation Center. This is Sawyer Slayton, Westmoreland High School. Since I was in middle school, I've been interested in aviation, and up into this semester, I wasn't set on where I wanted to attend. This dual enrollment opportunity has helped me seriously consider MTSU because of my experience. There are so many positive aspects of this program. The bus driver stays well informed of our schedule and is very dependable. I never have to worry about transportation. Simulators make the class very enjoyable, especially since I'm currently working towards a private license and will be taking my check ride this summer. A bonus has been my teacher, who shares his experiences from his days of flying. Their teacher was a Top Gun pilot, so they try to distract him from the aviation curriculum to talk about Top Gun stuff. But yeah, criminal justice, White House High School, Savannah Pearson. My experience was very good and educational. It helped me to have a glimpse into the career I want to pursue after high school. Taking a dual enrollment class there gave me a lot of independence. It was fun and great to have points to go toward that career when I moved into college. The criminal justice class was fun and I loved the professor as well. Leadership, it was a new experience. It was really fun getting connected with new people from other schools at a new space. I made so many connections outside of school from the opportunities from being at the Innovation Center. It was an amazing experience and honor to be one of the first sets of kids to learn there. And then lastly, we got one more testimony from Lexi Hughes in aviation at Hendersonville High School.
Hi, I'm Alexa Hughes. I'm a senior at Hendersonville High School. I'm currently in the aviation program at the Innovation Center, and I'm planning to attend University of Oklahoma in the fall. First off, I'd like to thank you guys for providing the funds for this Innovation Center. It is such a help for me and other students around the county who want to be aviation pilots. I am very pleased to say my experience at the Innovation Center was wonderful. Between playing on the simulators, having instructions for a real pilot, really encouraged me in my aviation journey. I'm very excited and hope for the best for this program in the future. And it's so nice to go and meet other students who are just as interested in aviation as I am. Thank you so much, and I can't wait to watch the future of the Aviation Center.
So, just where we are right now, this was our first run. We started as kind of a soft start this year, this semester. But some of the great work that's already come out, one is when you get to walk in there and you see before with aviation, that before only kids at one high school could take aviation. Now we have every high school represented from every part of the county. And they're loving the aviation classes. It's amazing to watch them, just learn. They're very interested in the same things. They built friendships across all the different schools. One of the coolest things is the criminal justice kids went out to the emergency services building to see the life flight helicopter and everything, and they took everybody on the Friday. So like the aviation kids were fired up because they found out you could fly helicopters, you could you could work to save lives that way. Pretty. Lexi actually found me at an event to tell me all about how cool it was to see the Life Flight helicopter and talk to the people that flew those choppers and did that service. So I think seeing the kids come together from around the county, but also wanted to show you we're going to be adding content in addition to leadership, criminal justice, and aviation. We will be adding content creation, entrepreneurship in the fall. And we'll also begin to add, of course, additional dual enrollment classes and things like that. But then another thing that wanted to show you, obviously, you know, our kids from leadership presented last time for Hands on Sumner, which is extending. It was started with students. Now it's going to be for everybody, and they're just going to extend. Like they went out and basically recruited Hands on Nashville to expand into Sumner County and can expand our partnership with the United Way of Greater Nashville in Sumner County, which is really exciting. But what we found is that started as 2 students with an idea, and it grew into something special. So one of the things that we've been working on this year, I hope you can see this maybe on your computer if you squint, but we've been meeting with different community partners in industry. So we met with Dee from Grace Place. We've had some great meetings with her to talk about what could a team of Sumner County students do to help Grace Place Ministries. And so one thing is could you do content creation to create an empathy campaign so people understand what the women and children at Grace Place, what they're overcoming, and to celebrate that, or beyond just what they face, like what it's like to be a working single parent when childcare is $6,000 to $8,000 per student. Like, how do we build awareness for that? Development and communication strategies. If you spend any time with Dee, someone's built a major nonprofit that's opening up 43 houses, looking to solve the daycare problem, everything else. Imagine having young people just spend time with her and learn to develop a passion and then to be able to serve. So this is one example. RJ Young, a number of RJ Young's executives lived in Sumner County. They've always been strong supporters of Sumner County schools. They're really on fire to work with us at the Innovation Center. And so they do, beyond just doing a lot of digital devices and LED panels and all kinds of other communication equipment, they also spend a tremendous amount of time like on storytelling, marketing, and how is AI going to change the future of marketing. Right? It's going to be hard just to go in and do the traditional things that have taken place in marketing, but there's going to be a new distinctive field of marketing that's going to emerge, which I think is pretty exciting for kids. So this is just a snapshot. We're trying to build these with all of our partners that are interested so that then we can recruit student teams. I think one of the things that you're going to see in the future of high school education is a big experiential component, because you've got to experience things to know if that's what lights your fire that you want to do for your life. You can't just read about it or watch a PowerPoint. You got to get in there and do it. And it's good to find out what you want to do. It's good to find out what you want to do. And AI is going to have such a huge impact. I was at an event last week, and they were talking about how it was a group of musicians, and they said one of the problems is they love to just riff and jam together, and sometimes they put something really cool together, but then they didn't have sheet music for it. And there was an AI tool to capture those things and convert it to sheet music. I'm probably not getting that wording right, so Mr. Evans, Mr. King, I apologize. Probably didn't get that right at all, but that's a pretty amazing way that things are going to change for kids. But the challenge is, the other thing that makes this important is entry-level jobs are going to shift. They're not going to be where you get out of college or complete your certificate and you go in and you've got a couple of years to learn everything about the business. You're going to start more in the middle, because AI is going to take over a lot of those entry-level jobs. So you're going to have analytical, strategic, other type skills to start more there, and we've got to start that in high school. Okay? Any questions about the past? We'll leave plenty of time for conversation. I know it's 7:20. This next part's faster, but okay. All right, so looking at our revenue. Our local funding went up $5.6 million, a little bit over $5.6 million, about 4%. We're very thankful and appreciative to the County Commission, to Mr. Schoaf and the budget committee, Mayor Isbell. Our state funding went up 2.42%. And you can see that's an additional $5.1 million. We did include, we took a hit on fiscal capacity. I'll show you in just a second. I'll explain that in just a second. We took a 1.85 million hit on April 28th because that's real time. So we did include 1.5 million. We get outcomes in December based on our academic performance. We don't typically, like I think in the past, we budgeted up to $1 million of that because you don't know what you're going to get until your test results come back, and you don't really, to be fiscally conservative, you don't really want to project income that you don't know you're going to get. But we've never gotten less than 2.7 million, so you know, we're comfortable going to 1.5 million, but understand that that fiscal capacity is a big problem for us, and I'll explain that in just a second, so hold that. So our outcomes on TISA are based on 3rd grade ELA, 8th grade ELA in math, and then high school, college, and career readiness measures. I'll be happy at another time. I can walk through all of TISA. That's more than I really wanted to do tonight, but I'd be happy if you have any, if you want me to walk through all the TISA calculations, be happy to do that. Okay, so this is basically an overview of where we are financially right now with this budget. So as you can see, our fund balance available for budgeting, 21 million has to stay by state law in fund balance. That gives us 57.5 million available for budgeting. So you can see our total revenue is 368 million, a little bit over 368 million. Our total expenditures, 418 million, which leaves us about a $50 million revenue less operating expenditure gap. Our budgeted capital is 5.12 million, leaving us total budgeted reserves to balance of 55.6 million. We have 57.45 up at the top that you can see that's available to budget. That leaves us an unbudgeted fund balance of 1.8 million. Just to give you a little different view of that, in 2023, we had an undesignated fund balance of 63.3 million. Then that dropped to 26 million, to 19 million, now to 1.8 million.
Just to clarify, when we're talking about the undesignated fund balance, in 2023 was 63 million. Took that 63 million, plugged it into the budget for 2024. Mm-hmm. So after 2024, including that 63, we had 26 left. We added the 26 in 25. Spending that money put us at 19, and now after 2025, that 63 is down to 1.8.
Correct.
Because it's been budgeted in year over year over year.
That's correct, yeah.
Thank you.
And it's because we made, you know, the reason to show what we did at the first part is we made significant investments in compensation, because you could see where we were. We were redlining in terms of employee retention and being able to deliver the services that we did. We also had, with the stadium collapse at Beach High School, we had the need to do the first run of massive capital. So out of that money, it includes $50 million in capital plus 40+ million in compensation that we've done.
I got a quick question. Can we go back to the
This one?
I want to make sure we got the revenue piece right first, okay?
Oh, I'm sorry. Mm-hmm.
That's kind of like the out of our control stuff. State funding, this 5.1 in additional, you know, all the talk is, hey, we've got the new, you know, we've expanded voucher, all this stuff. Is this 5.1, we're pretty sure on that? Like, is there
It usually changes a couple $100,000. Like, they continue to run until the end of the year.
But any students that we lose from the formula that go, that would be in next year's budget, correct?
Right.
From the expanded,
right,
whatever.
Well, and there's a hold harmless in that, with some stipulations we got to figure out.
So we're pretty confident that the 5.1 is going to hold.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what is the other revenues? I know that'll be one that somebody asked me.
Yeah, that includes, Trevor, man, do you want to explain what the other revenue includes?
Yeah, miscellaneous grants and other, you can see it on your budget document I'll give you a page number. You'll see that other, the local taxes, then you'll see like the other current charges on page 4. And then
Mine the
information
grants
on
and stuff,
5.
okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
End of the day, all I'm really concerned about is like, hey, we're pretty confident. I mean, because anytime it's a tight window,
Yeah, we don't have a lot of changes between April and June. At the end of June, 1st of July, we'll get our final TISA number. We don't typically have a lot of fluctuation from that, and that does include that outcomes based.
The biggest shift that I give Mr. Lancaster that's perplexing to me while we do it, I've griped incessantly about it, is we catch that fiscal capacity that I'll talk about in a second. We catch it, this year we got on April 28th, so we had probably 95% of the budget built. And we take a $1.85 million hit real time. And then you have to go back and adjust everything to cover for it. And that's a frustration.
And have we, I know I asked this, I think, last year, but, when they passed the whole voucher thing, all we heard was, oh, we've got this money that's going to go to capital. Have we ever seen any of this capital money?
There was additional money put in there this year. I checked the Department of Education. We were supposed to get information from TDOE last week about how to apply for that. Some of it comes out of sports betting.
Well, but there was also when originally it was like, hey, we're going to set aside all this money for growth and
yeah, the first run of it was tied to you had to have over 2% growth, which we did not have, so we didn't qualify.
Okay.
The sports betting money we are supposed to have some access to, but I didn't check this week, but I'll check again. With TDOE is supposed to be releasing the guidelines for that.
Well, I donated about $50 for the Kentucky Derby last week, so they ought to have a little bit extra. But none of that is in this budget.
That's correct.
So that would be bonus.
That'd be a bonus.
Okay.
Yeah. Let me talk briefly. There's an exciting new potential revenue source that they're still making rules in Washington, but the big beautiful bill included a provision for scholarship granting organizations to collect $1,700 tax credits from people. So basically you could designate $1,700 of your federal taxes that you already paid. You could designate that to a nonprofit that funds things. Public schools are included in that. So we are going to, the Tennessee legislature passed this year, thanks to Leader Lambert, they passed for Tennessee to be a part of that. So it could be a significant way. I'm at the point now when you look at this one, we've got to have additional sources of revenue. And I would love to find as many of those that don't fall on the burden of, taxpayers in Sumner County. If we can get a substantial amount investment from federal taxes that have already been paid so that Tennessee money that's now going to Washington comes back to Sumner County, we're all in on that. But we're probably a year away from that. It kicks in 2027, but that I don't know that they'll have all the rules and everything done to catch in fiscal year 27. It may be that we're going to continue to work to figure out how to work with a nonprofit to do that for us, but it's potentially a substantial amount of money for us, like in the $10 to $15 million a year range, which would be nice. That would be our goal. Also not reflected in here because it's not. We're still, 12 to 18 months away from that. Okay, so key factors driving our costs. Inflation in April was 3.8%. As you can see, our revenues are increasing at about 3% total. And inflation is about 3.8% now, 3% for last year. Remember it dropped in 23, 24. It had been significantly higher before that, up to even 6% before that. So inflation is tough. Diesel, if you've driven by the gas station lately, fuel costs are up. Utilities are up. Fiscal capacity 1.85 million this year. I got a slide I'll show you in just a second that shows the history of the trend of that. Increased pension rate. The pension rate is not anything that we have any control over. It's the state pension fund for TCRS. It's actuarially analyzed, and they tell us the rate of increase, and we have to pay it. So we took $1 million hit this year on paying pensions. Not, they just look at it for the state and they say, here's your part. Increased insurance rates, another thing that's going up across the state and country. Workers' comp, general liability, we went up $562,000. Increased medical and dental insurance. Medical and dental costs are going up. Ours are about $4 million. The Resource Authority, there was a shift at with the Resource Authority. In the past, the county had kicked in money and they let all Sumner County governmental agencies use the Resource Authority. They are now passing that cost on to us. Our portion will be about $150,000. And then enrollment, obviously it's something that we're going to monitor. Birth rate, if you remember, birth rate dropped during COVID for kindergartners, so it's down about 0.5 point. So that worked out to about the drop in kindergarten we had last year. We'll be monitoring closely our kindergarten registration over the summer to see, we've got a good number of how many have come in now, but you don't know how many are going to move out over the course of the summer, so we'll be monitoring that with enrollment. And just, $100, you have to spend $126 to equal $100 in 2019. So, inflation is eating away at our revenues also. So I think it's important if people ask you, like, our enrollment has been roughly the same for the last 2 years. Why are we continuing to get more money? Well, when you have a budget the size of ours, when you look at things like step increases and things like that, 3% is barely a cost of living.
I think Mr. King, question?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, on the fund balance, the one before the slide just.
This one.
No, the two before. Next one.
This one.
There you go. Yeah, undesignated fund balance 2023. I don't remember that being 63 million. I have a record here for. Is that the 22-23 school year, or is that 23-24?
Hang on one second, I'll get you an answer.
It says 2023. I'm just wondering if that's like.
That should be the 23 tied directly back to the 23 audit report.
Okay, so
very close to it. That's the 22-23 number.
Okay.
The actuals.
Actuals. Okay, I'm just looking at our undesignated fund balance at our budget workshop was 43 million. I'm just looking at these were the old presentations.
Yeah, I imagine that's a projected amount, and
Right.
so we went back in and added some actual data into
Okay.
the slide for those prior years.
Okay, and then that 1.8 for this year, is that undesignated or is that unbudgeted?
Well, it'd be the same. We don't have an unbudgeted, it's all the same now.
Because in the past, undesignated was different than unbudgeted.
Yeah, it's all the same now.
So
If it's undesignated, it's unbudgeted.
Yeah, it's the same term, just used interchangeably.
well, I think the undesignated before was used for budgeting. It says available for budgeting. So we have if you go to the previous slide, we have, or I think you said 57 million was for budgeting, right?
Yeah, that's total, yes.
Okay. But in the past, the undesignated fund balance made up that available fund balance for budgeting. So I'll look at it. I'm just seeing. So projected unbudgeted fund balance, I feel like there's a difference there. I feel like the undesignated is not the same as the unbudgeted. Because undesignated includes the projected fund balance available for budgeting, and then once everything's added in, then you have the unbudgeted fund balance. So I'm just wondering if the next slide, the 2026, I'm just wondering if that number.
We can change that to unbudgeted. It should be the.
Right, but I'm just, in the past, those previous numbers were not unbudgeted, they were undesignated.
Well, it's the same thing. If it's unbudgeted, it's undesignated.
So like on these presentations, we had undesignated, this was 43 million, unbudgeted was 3 million. So those were different on here. So
Yeah, but
yeah.
I'm just saying, this is the same. Undesignated, unbudgeted would be the same thing.
Okay.
It's just being presented
Yeah,
in a different
yeah.
way than what it was 4 years ago.
Yeah, let me jump to Wade real quick while you're thinking through that, and then I'll come back to you real quick.
Okay.
All right, Wade, you had a question real quick?
I mean, obviously it looks like it was, obviously you guys are presenting it differently than what it looked like 4 years ago. So I think there needs to, get that. My question specifically, looking at page 27 about diesel,
About what, I'm sorry?
about page 27 is about diesel, because
Yeah.
working in the touring industry right now, I can tell
You're
you,
seeing it.
I've seen the receipts of what we're having to pay
Yeah.
our drivers. I couldn't imagine. I don't see there's no proposed increase there, so I'm worried about, obviously, I mean, it can go down, it can fluctuate, but the reality is, I don't see that being sustainable.
Yeah.
And then what happens, I don't want to take away from something else just to fund our buses.
Yeah, Ms. Richardson had studied that. We were running under pretty significantly on diesel this year, so she thinks that if you look at our actual spend, that there's enough room in there. Now, if it goes to like $7, then everybody's going to be amending money in.
Yeah.
You know.
So do we have the actuals from this current year? Because I see the 24, 25, but we don't have 25.
But we're not done with this.
Correct.
Yeah.
But we'll have that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is good for you.
I mean, she's forecasting out based on.
Same. I mean, we're having to do the same thing. It's becoming.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's a crazy time for that. Well, and it likewise, like it pushes the cost of everything from.
Correct.
Like when Andy Brown goes to buy a part, I didn't list that in that list of stuff. It was in there earlier, and I deleted it on accident. But parts are affected by the cost of shipping and everything like that.
Okay. That was just something that stood out to me.
I would like to see either in an email or a future meeting, just the forecasted gas pricing from what we've done this year versus what we think is going to happen next year.
Yeah, we'll talk to Ms. Richardson and get that for you.
It can be an email.
Yeah.
Mr. King?
Yeah, just back to my original question there. So we're talking about a projected amount, and we're talking about actuals that come in. So this would mean that in 2022-23, we projected 43 million, and that slide says that it was 63 million. So that's a $20 million difference. I mean, do we really? Is our projection that off? Like that was 43 million that was presented to the board, and then you're saying the actuals came in, and that was a $20 million increase. That just seems like a.
I'd be happy for us to look into that, Mr. King, but I don't think it's a good use of our time tonight. I mean, we would have to go back and look. Do you have an answer for that?
Well, I'll just say, when we're forecasting fund balance, towards the end of the year, we try to be very conservative with revenues. We pick up some revenue on the last couple of months that we didn't anticipate getting. Same thing with expenses. We do forecast it very conservatively, going back to, because we don't want to get in a situation where we have less fund balance than we actually do, and it impacts, next year's budget.
Okay.
So in that undesignated fund balance, the 63 million was rolled into the budget for the next year. So that 63 million would have rolled into 2024.
Right.
And then including that 63 with capital expenditures and everything else, the 50 million, the pay increase at the end of 2024, that undesignated fund balance was down to 26.
Mm-hmm.
And then that was rolled into 2025.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of 2025, basically we had a decrease in about 7 million. And then this year, when you look at rolling the undesignated fund balance, we're looking at 1.8. So when you go back to the previous slide and you're looking at the 57 million undesignated, that's what our estimate is at the end of this calendar year that we would have left over from last year's budget to roll into this year's budget, correct? So we're saying of that 57 million, without that 57 million, we're in a hole, because our budgeted revenue is less than our budgeted expenses. So rolling that additional 57 in allows us to budget for capital expenditures, add the reserves in. But we're estimating at the end of this year if everything follows the line items exactly, we'd have 1.8 left over to use this year. But hopefully,
We hope it's substantially higher.
yeah, we hope it's significantly higher than 1.8 it did this year.
But, we're already catching, to Mr. Evans' point, we're already catching the impact of increased cost across the board.
Mr. Evans?
Oh, I'm still on the mic. Can I go ahead? I'll come back.
Oh, my question is, we have an hour and 18 minutes left for a study session. If we're going to talk about fund balance more, and once that discussion, that can happen later on, I would really like not to rush the rest of this meeting, just because we're trying, there's other stuff I'd like to talk about and get to, and then if we have time, obviously, I think that the staff here can answer those questions. That would just be my
Yeah, we'd be happy to get an answer on the fund balance.
So I'll just leave it with this. What you're talking about, that 57 million here, is on this sheet is what the 43 million is, okay? And on this sheet, it's the same thing.
I understand, that's from a previous year, so.
But it plugged the hole, just like this is plugging the hole, and what we ended up with here was 1.8 million. On here, it was 3 million. That's what I'm saying. I think the 1.8 on that slide is not, I don't think it doesn't seem like that's something different than the undesignated fund balance, is what I'm saying. And so
We'll get our team to provide that information.
Okay.
Okay. All right. I did want to, let's see, jump back here. I did want to point out, I need to, Mr. Angelo, could you refresh? Because I had some additional stuff I added. There we go. Okay, I do want to point out, if you've been to McDonald's, Wendy's, anywhere lately, you've seen that the cost of a meal has gone from $5.50 to like $11. We've caught those same constraints on school nutrition. So your school nutrition budget does include a 75-cent increase in student lunches for next year, because we have a lot of inflationary pressures in school nutrition.
Ms. Brady?
Does that, how does that influence our students who are on free and reduced lunch?
It doesn't affect them.
Reduced lunch.
Well, reduced it would. It would just go, whatever that percentage would be of 75 cents would be what it would go up.
Okay, so we don't have the ability to cover that 75 cents for all free and reduced lunch students.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right, so this is the fiscal capacity part. So fiscal capacity is a remnant, or it's a residual thing from BEP. BEP was the funding formula that was used for about 3 decades in Tennessee. It was not a student-focused funding formula like TISA is. It basically took the money in the state, divided it up, and had a formula that it was divided out to districts by. And it had some odd components, like it would cover 60% of a teacher, but not all teachers, different things like that. And the districts had to supplement the rest of that money. The residual is there was an equalization measure that was part of BEP where your wealthier counties caught more of the fiscal constraints of the educational system in Tennessee than smaller, rural, poor school districts. So it's a zero-sum game. There's 2 different measures. TASER calculates one, and CTAS calculates the other. They average them, and they set a fiscal capacity. It changes every year. This is the number we get real time at the end of April. So what has happened as TISA has come into effect, the first year, at the end of April, we caught a $1.2 million decrease in our TISA funding. Last year it was 1.44 million. This year it's 1.85 million. So one of the numbers is 2 variables. The other is 7. They do a multiple regression of it. Then they average those 2 numbers and tell you what your rate is. So, like, for instance, if Rutherford County goes down 0.06 on fiscal capacity, then somebody else has to go up, or some combination have to go up, because it has to equal out. It's a zero-sum game. So some have gone down, we've gone up. So we went up 0.06 this year at our fiscal capacity, and that equates to 1.85 million. Now, this number lags 18 to 24 months in the way that they do the calculation. So, hopefully we have now caught all the growth and this thing will begin to, but we thought that it would go down or stay the same this year, and it jumped up to 1.85 million. It's a residual that I wish, like if nothing else, I wish they would lag it a year where we would get the number and then we could compensate for it next year instead of having to catch it all real time. But this is what we have. So I just wanted you to understand. I can get you the formula, I can get you more information, or you can Google TISA fiscal capacity and it'll explain it. Okay, so what we're looking at for raises this year is a certified step raise. That cost is $2.73 million. A classified step raise is right at $1 million. And then in addition, we've got about $4 million in additional medical and dental increases. All right, our other big expenditures, we've got student support, behavioral, and I'll break this down so you can see it in a second. This is just an overview. But behavioral intervention, student support, the presentation that you heard from Ms. Daniel, Dr. Hallman a couple months ago about addressing the behavior needs. STARS counselors with student support, 492,000, CTE teachers, career coaches and innovation, 870,000.
Ms. Brittany?
Does this include bumping our minimum of a professional school counselor from a half counselor in smaller schools to having the lowest number be one full-time counselor?
Not completely. I've got a solution for that.
Okay.
It involves some personnel shifting, so let me talk to you about that after if we can.
Wonderful, thank you.
So, are we, I know you're doing step increases basically.
Yeah.
Are we, for our staff, with that medical and dental being $4 million, are we anticipating, if nothing else, that their portion of the insurance is not going to increase?
Everybody in the state's insurance is going up this year.
I guess what I'm trying to,
Yeah.
or is it going to increase any more than normal? Like, I mean, mine goes up every year. Everybody's goes
Yeah,
up.
I mean, we haven't had an increase in 2 years,
Okay.
so we will have an increase this year. We're still in the negotiation stage of that because insurance runs January 1 to December 30th, so we're only 5 months into this year.
Okay.
Mr. King?
Yeah, so the certified step raise, what does that get our starting teachers to, starting salaries?
Starting would stay the same at $50,500. It's just everybody that's currently a teacher would go up one step. Everybody's a current classified employee would go up one step.
Starting would stay the same, but the step would, I
Right.
gotcha, okay.
Right. If you look around the state, we would all prefer every year to do big raises. If you look around the state, like for instance, Knox County's cutting about 100 positions this year. Williamson County's mayor requested a 4% increase in salaries across the board for all county employees. That created a $22 million gap for Williamson County. So the Williamson County budget they sent over was $20 or $22 million out of balance. If you saw Wilson County's got the $7 million in insurance for their insurance trust that they've got to resolve. You're just seeing school districts across the state and across the country having to manage cuts or ask for more revenue. I think one of the celebrations of this budget, even though it's tight, is that it does balance, so we're not having to go and ask for additional funds from the commission. I think so.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Lacy.
So are you intending to, to do starting pay increase, or are we not doing that this year?
Not this year.
2,500?
Yeah, not this year. And if you look, let me go, our kind of pattern has been you'll see we went 2 years with the adjustment to the pay scale, and then we did a step. We've now gone 4 consistent years with increasing the pay, and we've got to, when you look at You know, when you look at this number, we've got to catch our breath because, you know, a $1,000 raise for classified employees, Ms. Brown, was $4 million. What's that? I'm sorry, for certified. A $1,000 increase on the pay scale would be about $4 million.
Because I know I did some research, and the counties that surround us, we're the second best paying job for teachers to start out at. I'm just curious if you talk to other directors and see what they're going to do. Is that going to make us lose ground, or is it everybody doing what we're going to do?
I think they're either doing what we're going to do, or they're doing what Williamson is doing, where they're saying we just got to have more revenue. I mean, you know, at the end of the day, you either increase revenue or you decrease expenditures. Because, you know, what we don't want to do is add to the pay scale in a way that we can't pay it in a year or two, so then we have to cut a bunch of positions. I would rather catch our breath, continue to look for other funding sources, especially like I do think this big beautiful bill piece is going to be very good for us. We could shift a substantial amount of our technology, instructional materials, and things like that into that line. That would free that up for other things. But you know, I mean, it is a very real thing that this budget is very tight, and I would love more than anybody to continue to give substantial raises each year, because I think wholeheartedly believe our folks deserve it. You know, one of the things looking at part of the reason that our fund balances are dropping is one of the areas that we used to catch a lot of extra funding is that we had a low fill rate on some positions. You know, when we had 10% turnover rates, we were saving substantial amounts. You know, we had 27% turnover rate in a significant number of classified staff jobs. We budgeted that money, but we never spent it because we didn't have people in those positions. We caught that in fund balance. Now we're at a little bit over 4% turnover for teachers and about 11% for our largest number of classified employees and 10% overall. So when you combine all that, like, you know, the good news is our schools are close to fully staffed. You know, the downside is we're not catching that fund balance that allowed us to continue to expand pay and stuff like that, because, you know, if a step raise is, you know, a step raise costs $2.7 million for classified. A step raise for certified, a step raise for classified is about $1 million. So if you look at that, you know, that is, you know, 3.7 million of our 11.6 million of new dollars.
Yeah, and then insurance.
And in insurance, yeah. It's eating us up, and that's the inflationary pressure.
On the $4 million for the medical and dental, are we paying some of that, or is our employees going to be paying all of that?
Well, that $4 million is our
what
portion.
we're paying more.
Yeah. Okay. So going to, let me start running through. So this was what we proposed to address our behavior and support needs. So this is mostly the program that Dr. Hallman and Ms. Daniel presented to you 2 months ago. It does include some other things because we've really got to expand some services like in CDC, because we're getting an increasing number of CDC students, and we desperately want to meet their needs, and those are areas where we need small classrooms and classrooms where you're not having to travel 30-40 minutes to get there. You know, our IBI teachers, we're adding 3 IBI teachers. Those are our behavior classes. Like right now, we have a class at Beach Elementary. We have one at Station Camp. There's nothing else around Hendersonville for behavior. Similarly, we have one at Beach High School, but nothing for the rest of the northern part of the county. So we've got to begin and continue to expand our behavior support for our kids. And all of those, the classroom management coordinator position is grant funded. Put it up here so you could see it. But that person is out in schools 90% of the time working with teachers to help understand, you know, how do I manage student behavior more effectively. Okay. Any questions? Yeah.
Mr. Lancaster?
I think a question we'll get, and I think most of us probably realize it from the emails and things that we have gotten, but behavior. Do we track like the number of students that are needing those services like over the past, like I know that has consistently gotten larger
Mm-hmm.
and continues to grow, but you know, I don't know that people understand that, like this by saying, well, behavior, you know, they hear like behavior is getting worse, but they think it's like kids are just acting up. It's not, these students that need this intervention service.
Mm-hmm.
My question is, the students that are in these IBI classrooms or these type of things, do we track or have we any kind of data saying, hey, well, like 5 years ago we had X number, this year we fed, you know, so that we can say, hey, look, we have there is a need, a growth or whatever here, a pattern of increased need there.
So I think it's interesting. It's about three things. So the first one is that our overall discipline has declined. Like our number of suspensions, our number of alternative school assignments, things like that has declined over the last couple of years. At the same time, the extremity of behavior has increased. So it may even be a smaller number of students in some ways, but it's a more profound set of needs because of generally we have kind of, and Ms. Daniel, correct me if I'm wrong, we have two big pockets where we're seeing support needs for students. Or I would say, let's say three. Kids coming into kindergarten that are having trouble making that transition. Kids that are autistic or other special needs that are in the process of learning verbal processing skills, communication skills. They get frustrated as they try to do that. And then kids that are suffering from profound trauma. And they are working through the trauma while they're at school, and they require a substantial amount of support. So, Mr. Lucas, to your point, it's like it may actually in some ways be a smaller number of kids, but it's more extreme and a larger need for support. So, for instance, like with IBI, one of the problems that we've had over the last couple of years, and it's why we've churned so many IBI teachers, is we haven't had an option for kids that don't progress right? Because everything we do is based on progression and improvement. We hope everybody that's in an IBI class progresses out of that and goes back into the classroom full time, 100% all the time. Just like with EL, SPED, everything else. The problem that we're seeing is the challenge that we're seeing is we see some kids that have such profound needs, usually because of trauma. We can't meet their needs in our existing IBI classroom, but we have nowhere else for them to go. We have some kids that, like right now, our only option is an out-of-county outpatient program. Those programs, like, it's not even about the money. They're usually about $70,000 or $75,000, $80,000. But even with the money, you can't get accepted. We've had some kids that we've been waiting 8 or 9 months, and it's not because we're wanting to move these kids on, it's that we can't meet the needs that they have with the resources that we have, and they need the support. It's tragic. So what we are trying to do with our Nest and Renew program is build our own structure internally to provide that, because what happens is, and I think Mr. Lakers, this may catch what you wrote, to catch that, we've got at the top of those IBI classes, we've got kids that have extreme behaviors that are not progressing, and they stay in that class. So that pulls the teacher and teaching assistants resources, and then the kids that are underneath there that could progress and could have their needs met there aren't getting as much of the attention of the teachers and staff because of that. So our answer is to consolidate some of that, so that, because the other thing is, if you have a teaching assistant out or a teacher out, it's really hard on those days at those schools when you have a teacher and a couple of assistants, or 2 teachers and a couple of assistants. So being able to consolidate that so that we've got more streamlined support. But then also to, like a classic example I would say is, for the last couple of years we had a behavior class or an IBI class at Schaefer that caught Schaefer students and Rucker Stewart students. And it was up around 12, 13 students. And that was a lot of middle school IBI students in one classroom. Last year, we added an IBI program at Rucker and an IBI program at Schaefer and split it. So the Rucker kids were at Rucker and the Schaefer kids were at Schaefer. And the overall satisfaction of the program, the satisfaction of the teacher, the satisfaction of the students, the satisfaction of the parents has increased tremendously, and the classroom is much, at both schools, is much better as a result of that. So one of the things that's reflected in this is having we've right now got our IBI classes at Venus Stewart. We would now have a class at Venus Stewart and then Guild, so it would spread. We'd kind of accomplish the same thing that we saw at Rucker and Schaefer.
Yeah, I think when we, and I know that's what you call it, but when it's just called behavioral,
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
it's hard to explain to people who are not, I guess, in the know of things as I guess we are. And I don't know anything either, but you know, I think people think, well, those are just kids that are acting bad.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, to a certain extent, maybe, but it's not. It's more to it than just that.
We've gotten really good with the kids that are, that we just historically said were bad. Like when I was a middle school AP, we had a lot of kids that we called willful and persistent. We don't see a whole lot of those anymore. If we could get rid of THC vapes, we would have almost eliminated high school alternative school. That's the main, but at the same time, yeah, and it's really tragic, Mr. Lancaster, because it's when you get to know some of the kids that are involved, it's trauma, and it's acting out of that trauma. And I wish there was another word, and maybe there is. And Ms. Brown pushes on this a lot. It's not just behavior. Behavior is the outcome, but there's a lot of other things feeding into it.
And I'm hoping that also what we can see from this is better outcomes for those students, like hey, what is the result of this? Right now, with it being so sporadic around the county and all stuff like that, it's hard to know. I'm not saying we're not. I'm just saying I would like to see some data behind, like, hey, we had these kids that went into this behavior classroom.
Yeah.
And the next year, or the next year, whatever.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
We graduated out, or whatever that term is.
Yeah. I 100% agree. I think, what, I don't know, it's just, it's tragic on multiple levels. One, for the kid. Two, for staff members that we pat them on the back and say, hey, go back in there and do the best you can. I'm not comfortable doing that. Like, we've all pushed really hard for this program before you, because I've had to sit there too many times and say, I can't imagine what you're going through, but I need you to go back in there one more day. And I hate that, because our IBI teachers, bless you, are called to do that. Like, they love the kids that they work with, and they want the best for them. And if you work with the kids, you'll see the same thing. It's just it's a tragedy operating on multiple levels. But I'm also like, we innovate here in Sumner County, and just saying that's just the way it is after COVID is not acceptable. And I think that, also included in here are 5 Kinderbridge teachers, where we're working a little bit of a pilot this year to have 5 areas in the county to have somebody work. Like, if we know a kindergartner comes in and can work for 20 minutes without melting down, but about minute 22, it's going to get interesting. Let's pull that child out, not in school suspension. Let's pull that child out and have somebody work with them on the skills so that then they can stretch that 20 to 25 and 25 to 30. And by the end of, probably by Christmas, probably by the end of the first 9 weeks, they're going to be acclimated, and then we can use that person to begin to work with some of those that are in 1st grade, 2nd grade, 3rd grade, to support them as well.
Mr. Lisi?
On the NEST program, when will that be in effect?
In the fall.
In the fall, it will be?
Yes, sir.
So, and I want to clarify, when we're looking at the budget and you're talking about these positions, and you're talking about the 2.7 million increase, step raise, that includes these positions, and that, but I mean, obviously, it would not the step increase, but it includes the hiring of these positions.
That would be that 1.1 right there.
Gotcha. All right,
Yeah.
perfect.
Okay? So, okay, I'm sorry.
8 o'clock, I'll wait to be ready.
I'm sorry, Ms. Hayes.
Yes, fine. Thank you, Chairman. With the addition here of these new positions, what, can you give me the totals we'll have in the county with the 2 renewed teachers? Are some of these starting positions, or are these additional teachers to the SPED intervention teacher, the 3 IBI? I know the answer to some of those. But, so
These are new, additional.
new. So what will that be plus these? What will that make our county have?
We can get those numbers for you.
I just, across the county, I'd like to know. And just by you saying a minute ago about having that IBA teacher work come, when the kindergarten gets about 20 minutes in, but they know at 21, that's the kind of information. Then when that child's assimilated into the regular setting, that's the kind of thing that's like, hey, look at the outcome. Look at the outcomes. So, I know this would be a great, I'd like to get what that is across the county with these additions.
And this is step one. Once we get this base work, 'cause I agree with Mr. Lancaster, some of this is experimenting and hypothesis testing to see what's really going to work. We spent this year figuring out what to do and where to add it.
Sure.
This year is the real test year. Step two is going to be, if you, we've got Jay in the back there. One of the things he'll tell you is one of our, just a phenomenal principal. If you've been to Hunter, you know what a great principal he is. But he can also tell you, because of his love for the kids that are in his school, there's equally a need to provide the same type of support for some of our CDC students that have ongoing needs. And that'll be step two, because there's not an answer for what we're adding this year. There's absolutely not an answer for that too. So we will learn a lot this year and then begin to try next year, hopefully, to take on and tackle that next problem. Or not problem, but just challenge. Oh, and it's hard because I want to be really careful that we don't use the language of, Mr. Cole, I agree, behavior, but also problem. This is challenge faced by our kids. Okay? Similarly, along the mental health lines, we are adding, we have a STARS counselor at half of our middle schools and all of our high schools. STARS counselors work every day at their school with kids, helping them identify problems, helping them solve problems, being a friendly ear, helping them set goals, connecting them to other mental health resources that are available if they need them. And so we have that in all of our high school and middle schools. It's just that half of the middle school is funded through a grant called Volunteer Behavioral Health Counselor. A volunteer behavioral health counselor is similar to a STARS counselor. It's just a different funding source and program. So, I did want you to see that we are, Ms. Brady, to your point, we are continuing to try to find, increased and more mental health support and counseling support for our kids. And we do, of course, have our partnership with Centerstone too. It's just that, what we're finding is that child care is a problem in this country. Mental health care is also a problem. Okay, innovation and CTE. 9 career coaches. We have those in each of our high schools. We started funding these out of the ISM, the Innovative School Model Grant. There was a requirement in there that we gradually, what they didn't want to do is have districts create staffing, which happened to a lot of districts with ESSER, with COVID money, is they had all these people in that, and then they had to eat them 100% in GP, so they just cut a bunch of positions. When they funded this money, the $1 million to each high school, $500,000 to each middle school, they wanted any staffing to be stair-stepped so that the positions could be assumed into a GP budget. So this is our last 25%. So after this, our career coaches will be completely in our budget. And if you see, those 500 kids that were at the Innovation Center on Friday for draft day, were done largely by our career coaches. If you don't think career coaches are good, imagine getting seniors on their last day of school to an event. Getting last month seniors to anything is a challenge, but getting them there to interview for a job and to have a great experience all the way around. But that's one of the things they do. They've conducted over 4,000 or 5,000 one-to-one meetings with our kids. They've taken them to trade schools, colleges, industry partners, everything. So they're really doing tremendous work to connect our kids to what's next for them. 3 new CTE teachers, cosmetology at Gallatin High School. We added a cosmetology teacher a couple years ago at Gallatin High School, and that program has absolutely exploded. So much so that there's huge demand to add a second teacher, which we're going, our recommendation is that we're going to do that, and that will dramatically expand. What's amazing about this is that by having that second teacher, we can get more and more higher level classes for them. One hand, that generates for us, on the fiscal side, that generates money in TISA because higher level CTE classes get funded at a different rate. But most importantly for the kids, it gives them the opportunity to get close to all their cosmetology hours before they graduate. If they work really hard and have the availability in their schedule, they can complete all their hours for their cosmetology degree. That saves them $10,000, $15,000. It's funny, we were, Leader Lambert and I were at White House at a career technical day, and we were in the cosmetology room. Neither one of us really require a whole lot of, William actually needs more cosmetology help than I do, but yeah, I can just shave mine. But the girl that was doing the tour, she gets in trouble frequently. And you couldn't have hired a tour guide to do a better job around the cosmetology room. She told Leader Lambert everything positive about White House cosmetology. I was laughing as we walked off. I looked at the principal that there's zero chance she's not getting in trouble by the end of the day. But she just expended everything good that she had in her for that. But those positions are very vital. Entrepreneurship and content creation, these are at the Innovation Center, but remember they will be building programming that will benefit all 9 of our traditional high schools. Our goal at the Innovation Center is not to add programming that steps on current programming at high schools. It's to accentuate or expand it, just like we see with aviation. A lot of it we can run through dual enrollment in the short term to help us as we're building out, but entrepreneurship and content creation are 2 that are going to be very popular, and they're also ones we can have our teachers do. Entrepreneurship, we're using the same curriculum that Williamson County is doing. Williamson County has, I believe, 2 national champions in entrepreneurship. One young woman built a testing strip on a bracelet so that if you're out at a restaurant, you can test to see if your drink has been drugged. On the other extreme, the boy this year that I think will probably win built a lawn chair with a drink attachment on the back that 30A has already bought 1,000 of for the summer in Florida. So, but they're running some really pretty amazing entrepreneurship projects in Williamson County. The Innovation Center Program Director, that position will primarily work, I mentioned earlier when we were talking about CTE and innovation, we've built all these great programmings across the county. Our scheduling APs, principals, guidance counselors do a tremendous job. We need work done to tie everything together. I also mentioned earlier 200,000 paid internships in New York City. We want to move more towards the opportunity of getting our kids into paying jobs, internships, things like that. That requires some organization and coordination, and that's what this position will spend most of their time doing. And then I wanted to close, we haven't shown this slide in a long time. I did not include on here, there is money that we send to middle school and high school band. I didn't put that on the slide, but I can share those numbers with you. We haven't changed this number in a long time, but basically for every kid, a school gets $75. That's board allocated money that goes directly to the school for instructional money. The difference is, and this is where our technology has kicked in, what we have done at the district level. Like when I was a principal, I would spend a significant portion of my instruction money on Chromebook carts, iPad minis at the time for my faculty, plus my district device fund. Now we have shifted the cost of the new teacher devices and the student devices away from the school so that they're able to employ this money. So it's the same money as, say, 2017, 2018, but before it was allocated mainly to try to just catch up on technology. And we had 4-year-old teacher computers, and we had 1 device for every 4 kids. Now we're able to spend that money at the school on stuff that, other than technology, that directly impacts our kids. So that could be some CTE equipment, it could be dissections, it could be, books, materials, STEM activities, 3D printing. There's a million things that they spend that on. All right. And I think I missed in the update, I want to talk about
Can I ask a
capital.
quick question on the school funding, the slide
Yeah.
you were just on? Back, no, the,
On the very end, yeah.
yep, right here, the allocated student funds. I know I've had a couple different individuals, or I say individuals, staff members reach out. Library, the $750. The cost of books has gone up a significant amount.
Yeah.
I know I was talking to one librarian. She said she purchased a book of, purchased a set of books for 32 NFL teams, and another set for all the Major League Baseball teams. And the cost of that was more than the fund allocation per student. I think she said it was, I'd have to go back and look, but it comes out to, I think it's like $10 plus a book per kid or something. I don't know the numbers. I'll have to go back and look, but there's questions about additional funding for libraries and purchase of books. The second one was, we've got a lot more students in schools that, from a fine arts standpoint, theater, musicals, things like that. And when you look at, we've got guidance, we've got library, we've got office, we've got instruction, there's a question about, can we get funds designated? I know you mentioned band, but can we get funds designated specifically from these dollar amounts or an increased allocation for those programs? Because the cost of purchasing the musical books themselves, the cost of the stages, the cost of the equipment that they're having to rent to run sound, especially in some of the gyms and stuff, that cost continues to raise as well. So I would love if we could look at that from an allocation standpoint to see, is there any room or any opportunity there? I know from an instruction standpoint, that the administration has a little bit of discretion and they push some money towards that, but from an allocation standpoint, those are areas where I've seen some needs requested.
Yeah, and I would also, I agree, we can always look at those numbers. I would also encourage, before my wife became a career coach, she was an art teacher, and she would have a lot of conversations with the art teachers about materials and supplies, and I would always remind her, hey, first, like if you're an art student, you're a student at that school, and we're giving that big instructional allocation for that purpose. So I think that, we can try to hit it from both ways. We do need to look at the allocation. We've talked about that before. Like we did that when we did the athletic facilities. One of the things that we also did was we did a run of funding for a band, for equipment, and everything, every capital thing they could possibly use. And that was really beneficial, especially in middle school. So I do think we do need to look at that. One of the things that we've talked about is talking at the state level even is, innovative school model grant money is about to run out this year. Could we get from the state another run of something like that with a few less strings attached to it? Because the ISM had a lot of things tied to it that limited what we could do. Would there be a way for us to get a run like that and then include some of that? We've taken STEM to STEAM, because fine arts and everything else are part of that overall curriculum. So I think we'd need to hit it from multiple directions, I guess we might answer.
Mr. Evans?
Real quick, I want to make sure, because I know I'll get a question about this. Apex is not something we are buying. Apex is our own thing that we have created.
We're trying to create
But the brand and what that looks like, that is something that we are creating. It's not something we're purchasing.
No.
Okay.
It is a good looking slide,
Well,
but it's not a.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I would say that's what I was saying, that we're trying to tie everything together so that every kid benefits from it.
Secondly, on that, this is just for clarification again, I'm very weird about this. My wife's probably laugh at this, but there was a different Sunbury County Schools logo. Is that a new logo that we're going to start using?
No, I just showed you a real time, that's still a draft.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it'll be the same Sunbury County logo.
I didn't want, again, it's a consistency thing, making sure. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah.
No,
that was
weird. That's the things that stick out in my ADHD brain. I see those things. So, all right, cool. Thanks.
I did have, you mentioned STEAM. I know every year we get a question about STEAM teachers in elementary schools. Can you kind of walk through the reason why those are typically PTO funded?
Yeah, I think that if you look at a school like Howard, what they've done that's been so successful with STEM is they've integrated it into everything. So I think the thing is we could always allocate those positions. We would have to cut other places. I think that the power of STEM in some ways is that it's integrated across the problem-solving techniques and everything are integrated across. I do think, as our revenues tick up, it's something for us to look at in terms of how do we make sure that that's equitable across the board for all schools. But we've got enough training and support now with our CT and innovation team, everything to provide support for schools to find the best way to integrate that into their current related arts. And I think what you'll start to see too is related arts will start to shift, like we've seen that. I know in Portland East Middle School, they've started aligning some of their related arts more to the CT and career paths in the high school. So with art, they're also looking at digital art and things like that. And so I think that again, it'll probably be like a multiple tier strategy on that.
Ms. Hayes?
To your point, I had that question asked today from one of the elementary schools I was in, about having the pay by the PTO position.
Mm-hmm.
So is that being communicated through the leadership of the school among the instructional leaders that they are to be incorporating this into their units, to what they're studying across?
I think it's the mix of, I don't want to step on what our schools are doing that's great, and schools that have PTOs that want to generate those funds. To me, that's a classic case where they're doing an extra thing for their students out of choice. You can, like Howard will prove to you that you can do it fully integrating it into, or like I could say like Bethpage Elementary next year, Miss Manning, they were using PTO to pay someone to do STEM part-time, and she's integrating it by putting, her librarian is going to become part of the related arts schedule and run STEM through the library along with reading and things like that. So sometimes it's a question of resource allocation, but we also give our principals the autonomy at their level to look and see what's best. And if you can generate the money to have that extra person, then I think it's a great thing for PTOs to raise money for. I think long term it's something that we want to look at, but I think we also have to look at, so I don't know it's necessarily even just the individual school leadership. Some of it is district decision making, but then it's also, some of it's change management. As you have related arts positions change, it gives you the flexibility to look at it a little bit differently or to reassign things. And it's probably somewhere in the middle of all those different things. STEM, we've had them for a long time in a certain school, but it's really started to expand in the last 5 or 7 years, and still trying to figure out what's the sweet spot for, because it's really, if you see what Howard does, it's really pretty amazing to see the way that, they tie their ELA curriculum. So, when they're reading about space, they're doing STEM activities that are connected to space, and then they're doing that in science, they're doing that in math, and all that ties together really nicely. And, what we have tried to do is, because, at the same time we want to respect the autonomy. We have some long-time schools that are very successful that do have a PTO paid person, and they're phenomenal programs. I don't want to in any way say that I'm against that or opposed to that, because I think that's great too.
Over and above.
Yeah, it's over and above.
Choose to that.
Right, but I do think that there's ways, for us to do a little bit of both to help everybody out. Yeah.
Now,
and we've provided that as examples and models for them to look at.
And previously, in the previous funding model, BEP, the STEM was not an allocated position, correct?
But BEP, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that, as long term, if we can get out of this dip that we're in now and our revenues start to climb again, I do think with, some of the outcomes money and stuff like that, that's where we can start to look at some of these other needs. Because that, in a sense, that'd be almost the same thing as like the PTO.
Sure.
Let me go back, because when we updated, I had added some capital things. Sorry, Michael. So, I have communicated with I'll have a little bit better picture of capital next week, and this is something that we can carry on into June if we need to. I think there's a willingness with the budget committee and the county commission to look at giving us additional capital. And so I think one of the things that we can look at, I just put down a list of traditional things that we've done with capital. Used to for years until 2022, we had a SCS in our budget book. We had a capital allocation, and then we had an allocation of capital over at the county, and they would approve our projects and they'd have some input. And we bought buses and we bought textbooks and we bought all kinds of different stuff over there. I would like to put, in addition to our budget, to put an additional program, or excuse me, some suggested capital projects to go over, and they can fund them or not, but it would give us, because we are really, really tight this year, and it would be beneficial to us if we could do that. And so what I'd like to do, because it's 8:30 now, we've got about 30 more minutes, I'd like to work on some of that this week and get it to you, and we can include that in our conversation next week, because I do think we can carry on the capital conversation. We need to pass our budget in May, but we don't necessarily have to pass everything capital until then. We got really favorable initial run on our special education playground. I think everybody was excited to see the mock-up. We got Gene Brown in. We'll have Station Camp by Tuesday next week that we can vote on, so we can, what's that? The 19th, yeah. So we'll be able to vote on our first 2 special education playgrounds, which are a big win. Also give us kind of an idea of what that looks like, because Station Camps is more massive and Gene Brown's is more on the smaller side. So it'll give us kind of a good cross-section of what those projects are going to cost.
So question on the playgrounds, because I heard this a couple times, is last year we allocated, well, this year we allocated $750,000, I think. Did we spend all of that this year? Did any of it roll over?
Well,
and then
it ended up being over $1 million with the commission, the commission's money. So we will know, we'll get the other bids for Station Camp to look at, so we'll know where we are. Because remember, we spent money on the master plan, and then we've got Gene Brown, and we'll have Station Camp, so we'll know. One of the things that we're going to request from the county is they can hold that money that's allocated into next year, so we won't lose that capital money for that. I would think that they will earmark that and just roll it over.
Do we, so as far as additional playgrounds, outside of the run of these first 2, I know we talked about expanding it to other schools that need the same resources. There's no additional funding right now in the budget for that. Our plan is to look at going back to the county from a capital project standpoint and rolling it into some of the other needs that we have, the roofing, the building upgrades, and saying, hey, here's our master plan of large capital projects that we're looking at for the next 1, 3, 5, 7 years, and then working with them to figure out the funding around that so that we can move forward with additional.
Yeah, and I think
is that the plan?
Well, I think what we'd want to do is, like, we would want some skin in the game, capital-wise, and then ask for, I think the partnership worked really well last year, and we can look to partner on capital again for special ed playgrounds. I just think it's hard to say exactly what that is until, Gene Brown was one of the smaller jobs that we'll do. When we get that Station Camp bid, we'll have an idea of what a larger job will be. It'll give us an idea of what we want to allocate. That would be another reason I would say I would prefer to to discuss capital next week when we've been through this process and the rezoning conversation, and we can hit that one a little bit fresh, because I think we can, for what we're asking, anything additional that we'd be asking the county for, we don't necessarily have to, we could extend that vote to our June budget meeting board meeting if we needed to.
Let me go to Mr. Lacey first, and then I'll come back to Mr. Lancaster.
Ask on the career coaches.
Yeah.
Is that one for every high school, or?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Mr. Lancaster?
They're already there, Mr. Lacey. This is like, we're catching, like, we could use the ISM money to pay it, and so we had to phase it in. So this is that last 25% of that.
Mr. Lancaster?
Yeah, I always get this mixed up. We got, 55 schools?
53.
53. I knew it was something in there. And this is not at anybody, because I know we can only squeeze so much blood out of a tournament. But when you look at the capital out for next year, you know, it's $5 million somewhere, black and white. You know, and we got 53 schools. I mean, hell, that just ain't sustainable.
No.
Because stuff breaks. You know, and that's just reality. There's no better. I mean, I don't know where else there's more reality in this entire thing is right there. It's like you can't have 53 schools and $55 million allocated. I mean that. But anyway, that's.
Yeah, I think that, as I put on the bottom of this slide, the need for a bond to cover large-scale capital projects is important.
And I wholly appreciate what y'all put together. I ain't saying that. I'm just saying.
No, we feel the same way.
I think that's got the message that, you know, if anybody asks, I'm like, okay.
Well, and I think Dr. Langford's point is that, you know, all of these capital projects, you know, it's likely that we're going to need to tap into the bond in some form or fashion, working with the commission, and it makes sense to put the master plan together, and we can have that conversation after we've gone through the budget, say, hey, here the building upgrades, whether it's Merrill Hyde, Gallatin High School, the paving, the sped playgrounds. We can roll out and say, hey, here's our master plan, catch as much of it as we can, and then work with the commission to figure out over the next year, 3 years, 5 years, where can we start tapping into that to roll it out.
Yeah, I'm going back to the.
Yep.
Hey, we're talking
Yeah,
about,
this year,
you're
this
talking
year.
about upgrades.
Yes, yeah, I'm talking, yeah,
you can't
this year, yeah, we're.
maintain with $5 million.
Yes.
Yep.
Ms. Purdy?
I know I'm gonna sound a little bit like a broken record, but do we have an update on the process for getting presentations and architects?
We have, now that we have done this,
Yeah.
we have a little more time. Yeah. Yes.
Mr. King?
Yeah, I mean, I think we can cover some of this with our reserves. When I'm looking at our reserves, I mean, and that's why I was questioning earlier some of the things, because like I was looking on here, this number, this 26 million number is on here. The 63 million number seems to be a discrepancy to this same report for the previous year, which said 30 million. So I don't know what's going on with that, but I do know that our reserves as of fiscal year 25 was 131 million, and I don't see why we can't
Point of
allocate.
order, we've
I'm
already
sorry.
done this.
What?
Point of order, we've already had this conversation. We're repeating ourselves now.
It's not a point of. I'm talking about reserves.
Do we have 131 million in reserves?
No. That was from last year.
I'm asking, you're saying that we had 131
At
last
the
year
end
in
of
reserves.
at the end of fiscal year 25.
Did we have 131 in reserves at the end of 2025 fiscal year?
So according to our audit report, our total fund balance for FY25 was 131 million. But as we've kind of talked about in the past, not all that money is available for us to budget. There's monies in the internal schools that we can't budget. There's money in school nutrition we can't budget for any purpose. Money at the state for TCRS. There's money in federal projects that we can't budget in GP. So the total fund balance for the FY25 audit was 131 million, but there are some pieces in there that we can't budget. And so what we've done in this process is start with that, and then we budget for we take all that money out that we can't budget, we project the money at year end, and we budget that money for the next year is the exercise that's been done.
Thank you.
So what is the projection of our? What do we project will be audited?
So let me just clarify something again. So Andy's tried to explain it. So it would not be prudent to budget a forecasted revenue and forecasted expense that we've not finished this year forward and fully budget that into next year's budget. That would not be fiscally prudent, meaning that would not be smart or wise. And so you would be budgeting money that you are not guaranteed and is not actually received yet. And so, and also, as Andy tried to explain, as those reserves close in at the end of this year, as we close out our revenue and our expenditures this year, that reserve balance you see is budgeted back into the next year. It's not like we just take it and we add it up. It goes into the next year. We've explained this. I don't know how to make you understand it. But if you would like to have a real conversation, you're welcome to make an appointment with myself and my team and Dr. Langford and have a discussion. But every year we go through this. I don't understand. I don't know how to explain this in a meeting to you for you to understand it. So if you'd like to sit down and we can go through it and we can explain it, but it is never prudent for us to budget every anticipated possibility of saving money, because if that money never comes in at the end of the year, we don't save that penny that you want us to budget, then our budget is not balanced. You cannot do that. So I don't understand what you don't understand.
I mean, I'm looking at the reports, and yeah, every year we have a surplus that rolls into that fund balance and gives us a new total, right? Now, it's my understanding that in the past there's been a projection of what that would be.
Every year. Right,
and we budget quite a bit of reserves based on that projection. So for example, for this year, by my calculation, for 25-26, 83 million of reserves was budgeted. The previous year, 84 million was budgeted. Before that, 85 million. In 2022-23, 108 million of reserves were budgeted. Now that money was never spent because we don't show a decrease in our fund balance. So what I'm saying
we
is,
clearly
yes,
show a decrease in our fund balance.
Yeah, we had this. Yeah, we did have one this year. It went down by 11.9 million. Okay, so what I'm saying is we have the mandatory amount you said was 21 million. We have.
Point of order, we've already requested to move on from this topic. I think most of us have heard this from Amanda multiple years in a row and can understand it. And she's offered to sit down with you and teach you again how this works. But you're talking about money we don't have access to spend. So let's talk about the money we do have access to spend.
Well, we don't know if we don't know what the audit is going to tell us. How can we make a projection?
Because it's not, the year is not complete.
Yeah, I know, but how can we make a projection on the 57 million or the 21 million? See, we're projecting based on something that has not yet been, an audit that has not yet happened. So we know there's money. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to put reserves into this budget. So what I'm saying is,
and like I've explained, we do a conservative projection.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, we are projecting savings, but it is a conservative projection. Every year, our reserve, if it does not come in higher than I projected, we have a problem, a big problem. So every year, I expect our reserve to come in a little bit better, but you can't spend that money right now. It is not smart. It is not fiscally prudent. I would not be doing my job if I stood up here and said, yes, go ahead and budget that.
but aren't we spending and budgeting capital
So
out of that?
can we go back to the slide that shows the totals for this year? So when you look at this slide, your conservative projection of a fund balance available for budgeting is 57,458,419. Correct? That's your conservative estimate.
That's correct.
And typically, we're seeing, based on savings, that number comes in a little bit higher. So while we say 1.8 right now, it could be 2, 2.5, or 3. We just don't know until our books are closed. So conservatively, we feel comfortable saying 57. We're not comfortable saying any more than that. And so can you walk through the process for when you close your books?
Yeah, so we start closing our books on June 30th, the year ends. And so over the next month and a half, we're actively closing our books, reconciling all of our accounts, reconciling all our cash accounts, all our liabilities, getting our final revenue in from the county, which typically is at the end of July, getting our final expenditures in. You know, you have delayed billing. You want to make sure you're accounting for those appropriately back into the current fiscal year, closing out out our POs that are not, are liquidating any encumbrances that are no longer needed, rolling forward those POs. And so we are required to close by the end of August. We, depending on when we get our final revenue from the county and a couple other numbers that we have to have from them to close our books, we usually close like August 15th to the 18th. I mean, ideally sooner, but it just depends. And we also are usually waiting on an actuarial determined value for our insurance trust funds.
So in the numbers that you showed on the slide that had the 63, I think, or 63, 26, 19, those are official, I mean, outside of 2026, those are official year-end, August, September, October, when we're able to close the books. Those are the final numbers.
Yeah, Trevor pulled those from our audit report.
And everything on the report, the
So-
spreadsheet that you've shown to us, in previous years when we've had this budget meeting, is just projected, correct? All right. Mr. King, I've got other people that have questions. If you've got,
I'll just say this, and I will get with you on that, but the 26,000,098, that was on this report that was given to us. The same report, that was 2024, the same report that we received for 2023 was not 63 million, it was 30 million. So that's where my confusion is coming
and
from.
that's fine, and I think Ms. Brown said she's more than happy to clarify.
But here's the
with you
thing,
one-on-one.
I don't see why we cannot say, hey, let's fund something out of our reserves when we are clearly we're funding capital, we're funding all this other budget stuff. And the trend is we budget reserves and they're never spent. So that's all I'm gonna say. That's the history. We have not, the 11.9 million decrease.
Okay, you're incorrect. Let's move on. Let's move on. That's enough.
Can I finish my sentence?
No, let's move on.
We've reviewed this a ton. We've got other
That is
people,
the
we got a
first
couple minutes,
decrease
and we can come back.
in
Mr.
almost-
Lacy.
in almost 12 years.
Mr. Lacy, go ahead.
I was just saying, could we have a study session dedicated to budget or the reserves to educate all of us that?
I mean, it should be this. This is our budget workshop.
No, yeah, I think Ms. Brown's made it clear. Anybody can come and speak to her, and she'll walk through any detail.
I mean, we would be happy, and after it closes August 18th, when we get it back in September, we'd be happy to do a reserve analysis.
You stole my thunder.
Mr. Evans?
That would be my suggestion. I hear your frustration, and I've heard it for the last 2 years, obviously too. And I feel like I get it. There's a lot of tension about that. And honestly, I feel like we're just throwing around a bunch of numbers that people are just going to see this and get so confused about what we're really talking about. My suggestion would be that I would think we'd take some time in September, that once everything is closed, I would like to see that. For me personally, I think I'd have a better understanding and be able to answer questions. So when we're talking about this stuff, I think right now it is hard to look at. It's not done. Like you guys have said, my suggestion would be that there's time set aside in September that we actually do discuss this. I think that would help us not only plan for what the mid-year looks like next year, but also to prepare for the budget for next year as well. I think it's pretty, this year was a unique timing of, we basically have a meeting tonight and then we turn around and look to vote on it next Tuesday. That's just, it's so fast on such a large amount and so much to wrap our head around. My suggestion would be that we have a lot of our board that's going to be the same. Obviously, like we have one new person coming on. I think that'd be very beneficial come September. So that'd be my suggestion.
And I would, if I could speak just a second, Mr. Evans, I think that, so I understand, Mr. Evans, about the timing. The problem is that the legislative session doesn't end until.
Right, it's not.
No, I know. I just want to explain because I agree with you that lots of numbers are thrown around. I would just make a couple of points because, as I've said in the past, our finance team is hands above the best in the state. They are dealing. We have one of the most transparent systems. These reports, I 100% agree that we can do a better job of walking through that and explaining it. But the reports are available every month online. You can, I'm not.
No, I think I want to be clear. I do not want to act like I am a professional in what you guys do as a team.
Yeah.
I think that's somewhat of my frustration in my time being on the board is that I feel like personally we sit up here and act like we're the better professionals at what you guys do. I think we should provide the resources for you to provide us with those answers and clarity.
Yeah.
But I think anything that can be brought to us to be able to explain it to the normal person on the street, that's what I expect.
No, I 100%. I agree with everything you said, Mr. Evans. I'm saying there's been a lot of other stuff thrown around that I would like to respond to for a second because I do think that the way it's thrown around impugns the integrity of my team.
It does
And I
not.
think that
I'm
that
asking
is.
questions. This is back to what we're doing.
I think
I'm
that
asking questions
Keith,
about trying to get the
Keith, I'm gonna
information.
allow Dr.
There are
Langford
discrepancies
to
on
come
here
back.
that I don't see on these reports
Okay.
that you guys provided us. I'm trying to get the information.
Mr. King,
I'm sad that it's gotten to this, that it's gotten to this
You can go
again.
and sit down with Ms. Brown and she can explain it to you. Mr.
It's not an insult against the team. I'm asking questions. We're right back to this whole thing. I'm asking questions about the information. I see a discrepancy here.
Do
I
it
don't
outside
understand
the
it.
meeting.
I'm,
Do it
excuse
outside
me,
the
I'm
meeting.
talking point
Do it
of order.
outside the meeting.
Point of order, point of order. I'm asking questions about this. It does not add up to what we have been provided previously.
And Ms.
That's all
Brown
I'm saying.
has made it clear that you can walk by and she'll explain exactly what those discrepancies are and you can get the details. and
That's fine, but we should not have
The simple
pointing out that
answer-
I'm
Dr.
degrading
Langford.
the integrity of the team. That is not what's happening.
Dr. Langford?
Okay. The simple answer is, as was given at the start of the meeting, it's the difference between projected and audited. And it was very simply the thing that this is a big ship. It's a $400+ million operation. We're talking those differences are relatively small.
It's just $20 million difference here.
Okay, I'd like to finish without interrupting, but thank you, Mr. King. You know, the thing is, we'll be happy to walk through, because I agree with Mr. Evans. You know, this is an incredibly, you know, I can remember a commissioner asking me the first year I was up here in central office to explain school financing to him. And I was like, come when you got 3 or 4 hours. It's complicated because you got a mix of federal, state, and local money. We've changed funding systems. We get money, you know, we get money at the last minute, and then we get cut money at the last minute, which then makes it almost impossible for us to do the budget. I would love for us to be able to have 2 weeks in between a study session and a budget vote, because I agree, we're asking board members to vote on something very quickly that impacts a lot of lives, and it is very frustrating, and I understand that. But you know, we're up against the gun ourselves. We put in hundreds of hours over the last couple months to get to this stage today, and you know, I just don't want it. You know, I don't want it out there that my team is giving incorrect numbers or incorrect information. They are doing the very best they can to provide the most transparent, clear, and relevant information. It's put on the website each month under the financial statements. We're always available for conversations and meetings, and I do agree. I love the idea of some budget workshops throughout the year. I believe, Ms. Brennan, you suggested that last year. Mr. Evans, you suggested that. That's something that we can do in the future. We can just look and see where we are quarterly or something like that and work on that. And that's something that we can do better.
Mr. Evans?
Just completely different. I know we have like 10 minutes. I would like to, just looking through here,
yeah,
a little bit of our paving plan. Just, you know, the reality is a lot more people driving, not even more cars, but I mean, I've been in a couple of these parking lots recently. It's not that it's just we're at a point where obviously some drastically need redone and restriping. So, I know I can think of a couple schools in my district, but I'm sure everybody else probably has some schools too. But and I mean, yeah, if you want to share some more, if you want to share some of your data with everybody else, you're looking at stuff from 22 and 23. I don't have that data. Send it to me. Man, it's ridiculous. But I would like to know about payment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, Chairman. Ms. Brown, on our audit findings in the 12 years I've been on the school board, have we ever had a reserved dollar discrepancy finding in our audit by our professional auditors?
Correct. No, ma'am.
Does the state and you all audit in-house in this county?
Yeah, we have an internal audit department. They mostly do our internal school funds, but if we ever have any kind of issue, we also can have them.
But on this big book?
Our comptroller audited, yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
And the State Department of Education and our federal, for our federal dollars.
So 3 agencies audit this. Okay. Thank you.
Did you have any feedback on the paving?
No, I just I mean, I think that I was going to jump back real quick. I think that part of, you know, one of the things that we put in money for, to go to Ms. Brenning's point about master planning, but I think one of the things we put in money for was for an architect to, in choosing that firm, I would say that that's one of the things that we look at. I think that we got some immediate things we need to look at, like Beach Elementary. desperately needs some paving. That would be up at the top of the list. There's a couple others that are up there. But so I mean, I think it'll need to be a little bit of a both and, like what do we need to put a Band-Aid on right now and address versus what's our long-term plan. And I mean, the reality is y'all, we've funded over $50 million in capital projects in the last 3 years. When we did the first in 2015, the bond that we did was for $72 million to address long needs of the county. We're just in a position where we can't continue to fund out of our reserves. To Mr. Lancaster's point, you know, if we're spending let's say 5 to 8 million a year on capital, we can't keep up, to your point, Mr., with the paving, much less HVAC and roofing and the other things that comes from over 6 million square feet of heated and cooled space.
And I would say, just from a capital project standpoint, you know, as we continue to build this list out, as Dr. Lincoln said, we'll jump back into this in June. Mr. Lacey, you sent a massive list from your district. So if you've got those, I mean, we've got some big items. I know we've got Merrill Hyde on the list. We've got Gallatin High School. We've got the SPED playgrounds. We've got HVAC systems across the community. So we've got a lot of things that are included. If there are other needs that, as you're out in the community, teachers, I know our staff talks to the principals all the time. They probably have a lot of those on their list, but the bigger capital projects that we need to look at, continue to send those in so that as we put this list together, we're not missing anything. And that way we're better off when we go to the county commission, say, hey, here's everything that we're looking at. And we can get a better idea of, you know, from a capital standpoint, what we need so that we can work on making those improvements over the next couple of years. So, Mr. Lancaster?
Yeah, can I, this may be kind of go with our study session, which we hadn't really had on goals, but I would like to see if we can't do this a little bit better in the future. And I know it's, hey, we're trying to budget, we're trying to get a revenue number nailed down before we actually see a budget. But we can somewhat take pieces and kind of know beforehand. When I say pieces, I mean, hey, we can have a capital idea of what we need that we could talk about like in a March meeting, like, hey, we don't know what the revenue is going to be, but we know these are the capital things we need to look at. And then in April, say, these are the expense things that we would like to do. Again, nothing would be final until you have a actual number on a page, like for it's kind of going in backwards order, but it's how you have to budget and have some of these conversations over the course of a couple of months or a couple of meetings. And also we could probably get a projection of our where we're going to stand at. I mean, end of March projection, you've only got another quarter left. You should have some idea of what your fund balance and all is as well. Again, knowing that those numbers are not final, it's just a number. It's just hey, here's a projection as of March. Here's a projection as of April. We don't have to devote 3 full meetings to it, but just at least sit down and have a conversation. Here's what we want to do. We want to spend. We want to be able to do a salary increase or a step increase this year. Whichever the two are, this is what that's going to cost us.
Yeah.
And then if the revenue don't come in for it, then we got to say, all right, well, we wanted to do this, but and I'm not saying we're going to send out to people like, hey, we're giving a 15, you know.
Yeah.
You just have a line like, hey, we're thinking of $3 or $4 million extra on salary, whatever.
Yeah, my only concern about the salary part is once we announce in this room that we're going to do that, people expect it, and we.
And that's why you would have to do it from a overall, like different operating. You would have to consolidate. You couldn't say teachers.
Right.
But at the same time, like, hey, we expect our operating expenses and bullet point like, hey, this, don't, you know, obviously you can't say announce.
Yeah, and I would say, the challenging part, because I think part of it is the reason that we made the recommendation for the architect and master plan. Mr. Evans started the conversation this time last year about it. Hat tip.
I appreciate that.
Thank you. But I think that we can, we're at a place where we need that master plan to be able to do what you're talking about. Because I think the thing now is like, it's so tight, it's hard to say, now I think if we're looking at, if there's movement or consideration at the commission level to look at a bond, and if interest rates come down or something like that, then I think that's when we can get into like a big long-term kind of capital projects. But I 100% agree with you, like doing some things to catch what we can. The hard part this year, just in terms of revenue, it was kind of a perfect storm of, with Mr. Lawing retiring and not having a finance director. Beth did a tremendous job on the county side, but we got our revenue numbers a month and a half later than normal. So it's like you're sitting here, X plus Y plus Z equals Q. Where do we start? I hate to throw things out that we can do if we can't do them, but I 100% agree. Anything that we can do ahead of time, we should. That's why I kind of think, if nothing else, doing some quarterly updates on where we start getting TIS estimates in January. Now, part of the problem there has been is the state data thing has been so bad that migration has been so bad that I didn't feel confident. When we got the January estimate, it was way off on economically disadvantaged students and things like that. And, then you look at it and it's like, hey, we got a $2 or $3 million gap that we're going to make up. And that, that's a concern.
The issue, like I said, I went to a TSBA training, participated in one, and some other districts were talking about, like, they had 2 months.
Yeah.
I just think we've got to get something where we're this 1 week, that's not a, hey,
I know.
y'all got to do better. I'm just saying.
Right. No, I agree.
It's hard to receive feedback and communicate and ask questions and,
yeah,
get a good feeling about a 400-page budget in a week. That's just, we got to do something better.
Hey, Mr. Lancaster, can I jump over to Ms. Barnes? We've got just a couple minutes left.
Yes, thank you. Just a quick question for my own understanding. When we look at like preventative maintenance for schools, for facilities, let's say HVAC, annual prevention, who has the responsibility for that? Is it the administrators at the school level, or is it all district supported?
So
for budget, and I'm talking about, do they have monies allocated?
Yeah, so we have an HVAC team in maintenance, and so typically what the administration's role is, if they come in and the air's off, they put in a work order. We have a team that goes around and changes all the filters. We have a team that goes around and does the routine maintenance. So we try to do that as best. But the problem that we hit more is we've got some units that are 50 years old. And we've got some units that are 8 years old that aren't built like the 50-year-old units. And so, it's really, it kind of goes to the thing of, we've got some deferred maintenance that stretches out over 30, 40 years that we're still kind of catching up on. And some of that is even automation, is replacing some of these older units. The problem is that some of these older units are astronomically expensive, and it's more than we can do, without like a bond or something like that.
Right. So it is all allocated through the district, like money set aside for preventative calls.
Yeah, we just, instead of having service contracts with outside companies,
right,
our maintenance team does the majority of that.
And is that the same thing for like paving, like, sealing, resurfacing?
Yeah.
The reason I'm asking is thinking about, are we allocating monies that long-term prevent us from capital expenditures?
Yeah, so if you look, one of the big increases,
real quick, we're at 9 o'clock, so we need to wrap. So if you want to finish answering this, and then I know we still got some lights on. If you've got any questions, feel free to reach out to me, staff, Ms. Brown, whoever, in this next week. They're more than happy to sit down with you and answer those questions. So, Dr. Langford, if you'll finish answering this question, then we'll close.
Yeah, I think, Ms. Barnes, I think so. We have not gone the route of doing a lot of service contracts. We do some, but for like paving, we've got the equipment to fill potholes and do small paving jobs. We can't do like an entire parking lot. So we usually, in the past, we would work with the highway superintendent or road superintendent, and they would do some in the summer. Mr. Ellis has come in and he's paved almost every road in Sumner County. Not quite, but he's working hard at it. He's done a tremendous job. So he hasn't been able to do that, but he has helped us with, Rogers Group and some other paving companies. And we've gotten, like when we did Merrill Hyde, we got a phenomenal price on that. When we did central office paving, that was another bad one. We got a great price on that. So that's one that we typically outsource.
Thank you, Art. Meeting adjourned.